The MC was always a little bit different compared to the rest of the people. Here in the sand park, he was playing and creating a sandcastle with a girl, where after seeing them, another bully kid comes up to them and jumps onto the top of the sandcastle. The bully shouted that why was he playing such sissy, unmanly games here in the sand park, and that he should just take her and their unmanly games somewhere else to play. Hearing this, the little girl started to sniffle and cry. But instead of getting scared, angry, or anything, the kid quietly stands up without saying a word, and he says just one single thing to get off the sandcastle. The bully was astounded and angry at how the hell, instead of submitting, he stood and talked back to the bully. But the kid did not falter, and instead, he started to pull his punch back, saying for one last time to get his foot off the castle. A little anxious as this response but still trying to look strong, the bully got into his own fight position. But before the bully could even get into his complete position, a shoe came flying towards his face. It was the kid using the knee of the bully as a base to give a roundhouse kick to the bully's face. The bully lost his balance and was thrown backwards. With the force, the bully fell down on his back and got dragged away a little bit. After giving the jump kick to the bully's face, he jumped back, standing on his own two legs. The kid's face was filled to the brim with anger and determination. The bully started to clutch his face, trying to wipe away anything that came out of his nose. But even after wiping for a lot of time, finally he realized that it was his nose which was bleeding out of blood. The bully began to rage and shake his hand in anger of the thing that the kid just did to him. But instead of fighting back, the bully just sat in one place and started to cry really loudly, asking someone for help. The kid and his friend just stood there, unable to understand what to do now. But then a moment later, another even bigger bully came along with the previous bully, asking the first kid that was he, the one who hit the bully in the nose. But the kid did not say a single word, just kept it glaring at the bigger bully. The big bully started to enrage even more at the disrespect that he was being shown, not being able to take the insults anymore. The big bully swiped a big punch towards the kid, which he instantly dodged. Missing the first one, the big bully started to load in his second punch towards the kid. He even easily dodged the next one. What's surprising was that he never even learned any martial art in his entire life. He was just somehow really good at fighting. The kid kept on dodging the big bully's punches left and right. After observing for a bit, the kid planned on going offense. And then, without any prompts, the kid gave a huge kick to the big bully's balls. While the big bully was on the ground crying in pain, the kid was just nonchalant about all of this that happened. Because for him, he was never a big troublemaker, and all of these were just little fights that happened between kids. All of these were not even that big of a deal. The big deal started when he got older. It all started when the kid was in 5th grade, starting at an elementary school called Moon Elementary. He was walking from the school to home just as every day, when all of a sudden some people in the middle of an alleyway called out to him. A big high schooler called out to him asking him to come into the alleyway, whereas another high schooler was pointing out to their leader that another kid came into the alleyway. The kid wondered what was this all about. The big high schooler put out a hand in front of him asking him to do a favor for him. Putting his arms around the kid, he assured him to relax because he also used to go to Moon Elementary too. Pointing him to somewhere, he took him in that direction, saying that it will not take much longer. The big buff high schooler started to tease this guy, saying that the way he was able to grab the kids, he should be in kidnapping business. With a real creepy smile, he started to ask the kid that the help is not nothing much, and he should be easily able to do it. The kid then finally asked, what did the high schooler want with him? The high schooler said that he did not need to do nothing much. He just needed to give all of the money he had on him to him. The kids then pointed out to them that just how pathetic one needed to be, that they needed to steal money from little kids. The other high schoolers got stunned by his reply. And then a moment later, all of them started to laugh that the first high schooler got owned by a little kid. Getting angry on insulted by a little kid, the first high schooler raised up his arm to attack him. But the kid was easily able to dodge the attack, and the first high schooler's hand swiped the air like butter. He was unable to process the reflex time that this kid had, and was completely shocked by it. Changing his footwork, the high schooler changed his stance for a new attack. This punch was also easily dodged by the kid, leaving the high schooler hanging in there. The other schooler kept on laughing at the first one that, how was he not able to beat up a little kid? But looking at the intensity that the first guy was going to fight, the other high schoolers got worried that people might start to gather around them and went on to stop him. But rather than the little kid, it was the high schooler who was getting owned by the other one. The little kid had used another one of his high kicks. Using the leg as a base, he kicked the first high schooler in his face. After knocking out the first guy, the kid stood aside trying to catch his breath. But unfortunately, his little break was even more short-lived because the rest of the guys were coming after him. The second high schooler gave a big slap to the kid's face, which he was unable to dodge, and the force of the slap caused him to get dragged on the ground far. The second guy shouted out that the kid had some kind of death wish that he wanted to do this, but instead of backing down, he grabbed onto a nearby bricks that were lying around. He was never afraid because he never thought about what would happen next or what the consequences were. Screaming a war cry, the only thing that he could see was how to beat the person in front of him, and that he did. He took the brick and swiped it across the second guy's face, directly hitting him in the head. The second guy was also brought down to his knees, shocked, unable to move. Seeing both of the high schoolers down, the rest of the high school gang started to get worried about who this kid was. They started to scream out to Austin that he was supposed to be the school head, but instead he was there lying on the ground, his head bleeding out. But at last it was the big, burly dude who got angry and shouted out to his friend to get this little kid no matter how it took. The kid started to run towards them holding the brick. He thought that he might be because he was born this way, and he never lost in life. And at last the ones who were left were the two girls of the group. Some were absolutely scared in their places while others were hiding their face crying for the mother. Whereas the first guy, the second, the third, and the fourth all lay on the ground unconscious, unable to move after being knocked out by the kids. And there the kid stood quietly undefeated after fighting a full high school group. He still had his brick in his head, which was completely bloodied at this point. Even his clothes were bloodied from the fights. He quietly looked back at those two girls who were sitting at the back. At the police station, the police officer was unable to believe that this little kid was able to beat all of the high schoolers. But the kid remained quiet and did not explain himself. But the officer remained silent and unable to understand what to do now. But while the kid sat quietly, his mom came in panting through the door, calling out to him, "Seth." Giving a big bow to the officer, she apologized to him for causing him so much trouble. But the officer said that it was completely fine, and there was nothing to worry about. With a heavy heart and a face, both Seth and his mom walked out of the police station. Her mom knew that she needed to do something or else he was going to continue getting into trouble. But first, she asked to make sure he was not hurt in any way. But Seth quietly nodded, indicating that he was not hurt and he was fine. Kneeling down to Seth, she asked him to promise her something. He knew that whatever was coming out of her mouth was not going to be good. She told him to promise her that he won't get into any fight ever again. Seth had no choice but to agree, because he never wanted to see sadness in her eyes ever again. Giving a weak smile, she is told thank you to him for agreeing easily. But Seth, at the time of making this promise, did not know something. He did not know what the actual reason behind her sad expression was. So for him, time passed and he went on to go to middle school. Seth by now was a middle schooler. One day, he was just sitting inside his class, but another taller person banged onto the door calling out to him, kicking him in his back, saying that he must think that he is some sort of big shot. Not fighting back, he got chucked back to the corner of the room with the force of the kick. Seth tried to get up, barely trying to catch his breath, whereas the other guy brought out his hand to grab him. Grabbing out Seth by his hair, he ordered him that he needs to do everything that he says to him. And even if he does not have any money, he should borrow it from someone else. Wanting to fight back but remembering his promise, the only thing that he could say was that he was sorry for being unable to do it. The tall guy then smashed his head onto the ground, saying that if he was sorry, then he should not have done it in the first place. He walked away saying that he will keep his eyes onto him and he needs to watch himself. And if he kept on doing stuff like this, it won't take long for the tall guy to make his life a living hell. Seth was barely able to control his anger and clutched his fist to control himself. After calming himself, Seth gave out a big sigh. He sat up holding himself, said to himself that he was able to do well, that he was able to keep his promise to his mother. Later that day, Seth went back to his home saying to his mother that he was back. Her mother, with a lighted-up expression, asked him that, how was the school? Seth answered that it was great. In the response, Seth also asked his mom that how was the restaurant doing for the day? She said that it was doing great. And she kept on talking with Seth on different topics. Seth also talked back with a lot of enthusiasm. Because no matter what happened, the only thing he needed was to see her smile. Because that's what all that mattered to him after all. But the next moment, he saw that a rich-looking car pulled up in front of the restaurant. The car was a really rich-looking luxury car which was here in the area. And at the same time, 4 of these cars stopped in front of the cafe, and a lot of bodyguards came out and scanned the surroundings. But then a really disheartening news came out to him. A photo of a dead person being held in the arm. Seth's mom instantly recognized who this person was. and tears started to flow non-stop out of our eyes. The guard holding out the person's photograph told her the bad news that he had unfortunately passed away. The guard's face was holding a somber expression. While the mom was breaking down in tears, Seth could not understand what was happening and kept on asking her that what happened and who this person was. Seth could not even understand what was happening, and his face was filled with confusion, anger, and fear. 3 years have passed by this point, and it was one of the biggest high schools. Some students were talking about that who was the new student and trying to guess that how his characteristics could be. Hearing out the commotion, the teacher told everyone to stay quiet and asked everyone to help out this transfer student because it was the middle of the year. The teacher was kind of annoyed and impressed at how prompt the students were. Walking into the room, the teacher introduced Seth to class while forgetting his name. Seth reminded her that his name was Seth Kang. The students started to murmur among them, whereas one kid was able to recognize Seth. Seth kept on standing quietly, whereas the teacher was losing her nerves, shouting at students to stay quiet. In the corner, there were 2 troublemaker students laughing and talking about what they were doing. And suddenly, upon hearing the Seth's name, he looked towards him and got super surprised on seeing who it was. Recognizing his old rival, he instantly realized who he was and was really happy upon the coincidence. And thus, Seth introduced himself to the entire class as Seth Kang. The teacher pointed him to sit at one of the empty seats at the back. And he was walking to the seat he crossed by another troublemaker who was sleeping openly in class. And he went and sat just right beside him. While he was settling down, he realized some students of the class were eyeing him down. It was the 3 troublemaker of the class that he saw beforehand. Seth, recognizing the 3, gave a big smile and waved them back. His smile slowly turned into a grin when he realized that those 3 jokers were here as well. It was already the half day and the confrontations did not stop coming to him. In the lunch break, one of the troublemaker students called out to him, saying that they were so sad when Seth transferred out of the middle school. Putting his hand on Seth's shoulder, he told that he missed him a lot. The other guy, giving a grin, told that they are going to have a great school year now. But unlike before, Seth did not give out a big sorry, he just gave a big smirk. Angered at this response, the bully asked him that did he forget who he was? How was he able to talk back like this? Seth did not lose his smile, but keeping it told that he absolutely knew who these 3 were. The bully was even more angry now because now he realized that Seth was acting like this, knowingly. The other guy from his back straight up got ready to attack him in his back. But among these commotion, the sleeping guy got woken up and urged all of them to just shut up. He got up his head to warn all of them, glaring to them that they were harming his sleep. The bully could not say even a single word and just thought sorry to himself. And all of them got silent instantly. Not wanting to do anything with the spiky hair kid anymore, both of the bullies started to walk away, saying that this was not over and that they will see this later. While walking away, the bully kept on cursing under his breath. Seth kept on wondering who this spiky hair kid was. For the next class, a really old, trembling man came into the room. He was so slow that it took him a lot of time to even reach to the class podium. But after a little bit amount of time, he was able to reach eventually. He greeted the kids and said that he was going to teach today's lesson, which even he himself forgot halfway. Over here at the side, the bully was grinding his gears about what happened today. And he promised to himself that he was absolutely going to kill Seth for what he did. But Seth did not even care about that. He was just looking out of the window. He said to himself that what a nice weather this was. While he was busy appreciating the weather, one person from the front of the class was looking back at him. It was the brown-haired girl which had recognized him since earlier. She realized it was the same Seth that she used to play with when both of them were little kids. Seth's eyes caught the attention of the brown-haired girl, and the brown-haired girl started to panic, realizing that Seth has noticed her, and she turned around instantly, leaving Seth confused. He started to wonder that did he know someone like that before? But thinking to himself to not worry about such trivial things, he turned his head around to the outside once more, thinking to himself that this school life is going to be really fun for him, and he breathed in a lot of fresh air from outside. Filling his mind and lungs with such cozy atmosphere and weather, he started to feel really sleepy. Feeling cozy, set down his head onto the table to sleep. The spiky hair kid noticed Seth sleeping beside him and started to wonder what kind of person this guy was, planning on taking a little stroll. He got up from his chair and kept on yawning his entire way out. The 2 bully guys then started to wonder if this spiky hair dude left or not. Both of them guessed that he has left, and they turned their attention to the now sleeping Seth, who was without any kind of protection. Seeing him sleep so peacefully, the bully's veins started to pop out from his head, Calling out all of his goons, he was determined that he was going to beat Seth's ass today. But just as they were going to Seth, someone blocked their way to him. It was the brown girl. She had stopped 3 of them to go to him. The 3 bullies told her to get out of the way, but she refused to do so. The first bully started to threaten that if she did not move out of the way, he was going to beat her as well. But she stated the rules of the class, saying that he was not allowed to cause any kind of trouble here. But the first bully didn't care at all. He said that he was going to push her aside to go to him. But the brown-haired girl kept her standing and did not move an inch. The brown-haired girl said that she was the class rep and she was going to maintain every kind of law and order in the class. But Seth kept his hand on her shoulder, saying that he was thankful for her standing up to him. But could she move aside a little bit for now? The brown-haired girl looked back to see what was going on. Seth said that it was going to be okay because these guys were his buddies from his middle school. Raising up his arms, he told them that did they miss him? And thus he began to explain his backstory to the brown-haired girl. He said that back in his middle school days, he held back because of his promise to his mother. But this time there was nothing stopping him. The first bully child started to get worried about Seth's different demeanors. But he stayed cautious, wondering what he might do. The brown-haired girl was also completely clueless as to what was about to happen. He further added that even though his mom told him to never fight anyone, his dad told him to never lose from anyone. A while later, the spiky-haired kid came back from his running course completely sweaty. Opening the door, he went on to sit back at his location in the class. But he realized that something was off in the class. All of the bully kids were not there in their own seats, but Seth over here was sleeping silently like a baby. And every single one in the class was absolutely afraid of Seth by now, worried that any one of them might trigger him. The brown-haired girl looked behind to see if everything was fine or not. Yet Seth was still sleeping. Over at the other side of the school, a goon got angry on one of the bullies that they had been beaten by Seth and came back running. And he got even more angry when he realized that Seth was someone they used to bully in the past. The bully kid, bandaged at this point, gritted his teeth, saying that he did not know how this happened because Seth was completely weak when he was in middle school. But this time there was something about him that was completely different than him in the past. His movements were as fast as the wind. Nobody could even see it. The first bully was able to only see it after it was right up to his nose. In one single motion, he instantly knocked out all 3 of the bullies at once. The goon then taunted the bully that he should be absolutely ashamed by getting beat up by a weak guy. Finally, listening to him, the goon started to walk towards his class door. Walking up to his classroom, the goon asked for the final time that was set in this class. Ripping apart the door by his bare hands, he barged himself into the room. Reaching his class, the goon shouted out to everyone to tell him where the new kid was. Seeing commotion, the brown-haired girl looked towards the goon to see what had happened. He randomly began to pick out kids, asking if they were the new ones. But they are terrified and answered that they were not. The terrified kid then pointed out to the window, saying that the new kid was the one who was by the window. Giving a creepy smile, he said that he was going to give the new kid an absolute welcome. This time, even the class representative was unable to say anything, and they all stayed quiet. In orderly manner, he first called out to Seth, asking him to wake up because he wanted to talk with Seth. But because he did not wake up, he shouted and banged his table to forcibly wake him up. With angry voice, he said to the Seth that he has come to know that he had beaten up his source of money. Just waking up? Seth was not even able to comprehend what the heck he was talking about. But in grabbing him by his neck, the goon said to him that everybody calls him the goblin of this school. Seth was just creeped out at how ugly he looked. Giving him a closer look, he said that Seth looked a little bit familiar. Did they ever meet before? He still could not understand what the heck he was talking about. Within a moment, he instantly was reminded who Seth was. In return, Seth also remembered who this goon was. He was the same kid who had encountered Seth in the kindergarten and broke his sandcastle. And in revenge, Seth took a roundhouse kick directly to his face and directly kicked them out of the picture. And after which he had called his elder brother to help him. And even the elder brother got perished within a matter of minutes. And he had to drag back his elder brother back to his home. Thus, this was the same guy that he had encountered back in the day. And even present day, Seth shouted out that he remembered who he was. He in turn asked the goon how he was, because they haven't met since so long, and even asked that how his elder brother was. But the goon was absolutely shaking in his pants. Seth kept on looking cluelessly, not understanding that why he was not responding to the question. Not saying anything anymore, the goon just quietly said that he will see him later. Seth also gave the goon a big smile and that he will meet him later. The first bully was completely unable to understand that what the heck just happened. Why did his elder brother just walk out like that? Because when he came, he said that he was going to absolutely whoop Seth's ass. Now what happened? But without replying, the goon just told the bully to get out of his way. But the bully kept on shouting to the goon, asking that why was he not beating him up as he promised to him. But the goon didn't answer still. He just quietly glaring him told him to move. And not wanting to get beat up on the spot, he also quietly moved out of the way. He looked back into the class where Seth was sleeping, still baffled as to what just happened in between the two men. In the meantime, he just had a smirk on. The bully just shouted into the air that, what the hell was going on? After some time, Seth was sleeping on the terrace thinking that how nice it was to come back to his old neighborhood because he was able to see so many familiar faces. Whereas on the other side of the school, extremely mortified goon called his older brother, asking for help, over at Seth's mom cafe. Seth was sitting on the counter talking to his mom. Both of them were talking to each other about various stuff that happened to him. She asks him that how was his experience with the high school, remembering the day he started to giggle saying that it was a really nice one, looking worried at Seth. His mom said that he should honor their promise at all times, that he hiding his face said that he was going to honor it at all times, but added under his breath that he won't attack unless someone else does it first. His mother could only look at him sadly. Walking up, he told his mother that he was going back to his home, and his mom bade him goodbye. Walking out of the cafe, he looked around scanning his surrounding, when suddenly his eyes caught something standing in front of him. A person with a Luxury car was bowing down in front of him, greeting him back. With a stern expression, he started to slick back his hair and told him not to embarrass him like this in front of everyone in his old neighborhood. That driver instantly started to pant and asked for forgiveness multiple times. Seth, with the driver, sat inside of the costly car. Going to the back of the car, Seth gave out a big sigh. Collecting himself, he told the driver to drive him to the school now. Bowing to Seth, the driver zoomed the car past his mom's cafe. Her mom came out to see his son for the last time. Her eyes were filled with worry about what was going to happen to her son now. Her face got scrunched up in worry. At the school, both Seth and the spiky-haired kid were just sleeping throughout the classes. The period passed and the clock went past 8, and all of the kids in the class were busy chatting before the other teacher came in. The time went past 10:15. Another teacher thought another subject while both of them kept sleeping. The brown-haired girl, who was the class representative, looked at how Seth was just going on sleeping. But she didn't say anything because she was wary of him now. Over on this side, the class bullies were busy laughing about some topic. For the next period, the physical education teacher came to teach. The class representative asked the entire class to stand up and bow to the teacher. The teacher then waved his hand saying that it was all right, and there was no need for such formalities. Walking up to the podium, the teacher's eyes went to the kids sleeping in the corner of the room, who were Seth and the spiky hair kid. Seeing them disrespecting his teacher honor like this, he got super angry. So angry that in fact the veins started to pop on his forehead. Rolling his sleeves up, he started to walk up to the sleeping kids, but the entire class was scared silent thinking about the consequences of the actions that may happen now. Standing just behind the chair of the two kids, the teacher stood silently. He grabbed the one ear of a spiky hair kid, and the other one of Seth. He raised both of them up to his height just by grabbing their ears. He shouted out to Victor that he let him sleep the last time in his class, only because he had an official fight coming up. And he looked confused at Seth, wondering who the heck this new kid was. The brown-haired girl answered that he was the new kid who had transferred in just a week ago. The teacher got super angry on realizing that both of them were sleeping and called them out to the field. And thus the spiky hair kid and Seth, both of them got onto the field wearing their PE uniform. The spiky hair kid was annoyed that why did the teacher have to force all this onto him? The class students also came out to the field murmuring to themselves about what was about to happen. Seth gave out the most monotonous expression, saying that this was super boring. Holding out his head, the teacher told that they have to run 3 laps. The rules were pretty simple. The one who crossed the finish line faster will not be punished for sleeping in the class, but the loser will be punished so hard that they are going to regret being born. Both Seth and the spiky hair kid did not understand what was the point of all of this, but instead of answering them, he just yelled at them if they understood him or not. While spiky hair kid was reading himself, Seth was standing normally, and the teacher asked if he was planning on reading this day or not. And thus, both of them got to the starting position of the running track. Although he was feeling sleepy, Seth said that he was not going to lose at all. Seeing Seth's enthusiasm, the spiky haircut also got ready to go, and instantly jumped past Seth by bolting ahead. Not wanting to be left behind, Seth also started to run. Moments later, he had caught up to the spiky hair kid. But calling him a dumbass, he moved on ahead, leaving Seth in the back. This disrespect removed all of the sleepiness he had in his body, and he was now fully awake, fully prepared to run. Both of them started to bolt towards the finishing line. The professor could not even understand what the heck was happening. But no matter how hard each of them tried, both of them were evenly matched with each other. The professor's mouth was left wide open in shock at the speed at which they were running. Both of them went past the professor's face like a windfall. The professor was just left in the dust, but the both of them, not wanting to stop for even a single bit, kept on running past the track. And by now, both of them already passed the U-band. The rivalry between both of them kept on increasing second by second. And that is how the day at the high school went today. After the race, both the spiky hair kid and Seth were left completely panting, drenched in their own sweat. The spiky hair kid was just impressed at the tenacity of Seth. Seth was happy, realizing that he was going to have a great school year. On the other end of the track, the professor was wondering that even though he already knew about Victor, but he was surprised at the presence of a new talent. At the National Wrestling Championship, the host said that the one who wins this match is going to be the one who moves to the national team. Over in the indoor stadium, a lot of people had come to watch the fights between the wrestlers, and the class of this fight was open weight championship. One of the heavy wrestlers started to gloat that he was able to reach here easily, and thus he will also reach the national as easily as well. But his opponent gave a scary glance as well. He did not taunt. He did not say anything. He just openly looked back. The tension among the people were rising, and the anger of the second wrestler was rising as well as, but a moment later he was on the ground while the second wrestler walked away completely unimpressed. Here in the athletes' changing room, we get to see the name Brock Chang. Inside the changing room, Block was quietly sitting while steaming his body. The class goon turned out to be Brock's little brother. He called out to him, telling to his elder brother that he needed some help. Without saying even a single name, he just said that the person was back. Hearing the mentioning of that person, his demeanor changed. The class goon reminded Brock that by he meant the kid who had defeated him back in the kindergarten. The recollection of that person, Seth, hit him like a trucker. Silently, without a word, Brock just started to laugh, scaring his little brother. Now, back at the high school, both the spiky hair kid and Seth were brought into the counseling room, where the teacher explained to both of them that he was excusing them and they better not both sleep at his class anymore. Not getting any response, he climbed down to their mouths, and Seth and the other kid just quietly said, "Yes, sir." Changing the topic, this teacher asked the spiky hair kid, Victor, that when was his next competition? Victor turned his face around, saying that he did not sign up for it. With a growling emotion, the teacher said that if he was keeping out like this, he was going to lose his weight and lose his chance at going professional. Victor just stayed quiet. Now the teacher turned his attention towards Seth. He asked Seth if he was in some kind of clubs, team, or any kind of sports activity. Seth could not understand what he was talking about and blabbered like an idiot. The professor had to explain again clearly what he meant, and then Seth answered that he was not in any kind of clubs. Confused at how such a talented kid was gone unnoticed for so long, he just told both of them to get back to their classes. Both Victor and Seth left the counseling room back to their classes. They quietly walked, and there was not a single dialogue exchanged between them. And similarly, quietly and wordlessly, they entered the class. Not even a moment later, inside the class, both of them got to the original states. Victor started to yawn and Seth started to sigh. The old teacher, still shaking, told both of them to settle down and take their seat. They just went back to the seats and left dazed. Not even a moment later, both of their heads hit the table and they were back to sleep. But now, Victor was aware of a new character who was of his par and level, and Seth also could not ignore such an unmissable character anymore. After looking at each other for a moment, both Victor and Seth went back to sleep. And just like that, the dawn of the day arrived. But just then, Brock, the school goon's older brother, was at the school. Looking at the school, Brock started to groan that why did he have to come back to this place once again? In the kendo club, one kid ran into the room, bashing the door open, shouted out to the leader that Brock was here. Another one person kept on looking at him through the window. And here in the judo club, the news also reached the leader as well. And thus, the news spread out to the entire school that Brock was here. And all the hot shots of the school were aware of Brock's presence. The one who took the news the most heavily was the student council. Seth was left sleeping in the school. On the other hand, Victor got ready to clothe himself up and started to go for a run throughout the entire school. But as he was running throughout the school, the silence of his surrounding kind of creeped him out. But he ignored all of them and kept on running. Just a moment later, someone called out to him. It was Brock. Brock called out to Victor, asking him that where class 1 to 3 was. But Victor did not give a damn and ran past him, clicking his tongue. Brock was completely angered at this blatant disrespect, and he grabbed Victor by his shoulder, asking him, was he deaf or something for ignoring him like this? Now, Victor's rage increasing a lot. He turned around to Brock, pointing towards his shoulder that if he did not let go then, he was going to kill him. Brock started to laugh at this blatant attempt of challenging, getting serious. He asked Victor did he even know who he was? As if mocking, Victor went up to his face and asked him who he was. Before the conversation could even move forward, Victor pulled up his punch and gave Brock a powerful uppercut. For the next attack, Victor changed his stance, pulling back his leg, and attacked with a roundhouse punch. He kept on giving those series of punches as a Gatling gun. Now Brock was on the offense. He targeted his hand onto directly Victor's face and grabbed Victor by his neck. Just the force of his grab caused Victor to get thrown back a little bit. Keeping Victor pinned in one location, he started to wipe his face. Victor had hit Brock so much that his mouth started to bleed. Getting into his stance, Brock congratulated Victor for being good enough to causing him bleed. But even this much was not going to change anything because he was Brock Chang, the greatest fighter of all time. Gloating himself, he raised up his other arm to hit Victor, when suddenly someone called both of them, breaking their attention. It was Teacher. He was standing at the edge of the field asking if Victor got into another fight. By now, Seth was in the locker room taking out his shoes where he encountered all three of them standing at one side, literally oblivious that he himself was the cause of all of this fight. At the school council, the head apologized for the sudden meeting. The head of the student council was introduced as Jason Shin. With a grim expression, he told everyone that the situation was so dire that he did not even need to explain why all of them were here. The main cause of the situation was the infamous fighter Brock Chang was back at the school. They do not know why this has happened, but this has caused the things to get a lot complicated. Because Brock was someone who has already caused a lot of trouble to the school. After all, he was the national wrestling representative. And the other half of the problem was the national featherweight boxing champion Victor. So the latest news that the council president had was that both of them were taken in the middle of the fight by the gym teacher. One of the members began to express his anger that why the heck was he back at now? Because right now it was the time to prepare for the nationals. This was told by none other than the captain of the Taekwondo club, Gabe. Someone else added that Brock did not need a reason to get into the school. It was his school after all. The one who said this was the captain of the judo club, Sam. The council president interrupted in between of them, saying that none of them have the complete information. But he added that since all of them knew Brock since they were little kids, they should know what kind of personality he has and what he can do. Someone sitting at the corner pointed out that it was a new kid. Brock came to this school to get to the new kid. Sam added that he also heard about this, yet he was not sure why. Now the tone of the council changed once more, and the entire focus was on the new kid. By this time it was dawn already, and Seth left the school for the day, walking to his home. Trying to find the car to go to his home, he noticed something at the corner of his eyes. It was his own luxury car. Inside it, the driver had completely fallen asleep even amidst the heat. Waiting for a moment, Seth knocked the window to wake the driver. The driver instantly lost his mind. He started to welcome his boss and started to ask for forgiveness for sleeping. Seth added that it was not any problem. So he and the driver sat in the car and rolled by to their home. From within the school, the brown-haired girl saw Seth sitting in the back seat of the car and wondered how was he coming in such a rich car. While driving, the driver asked Seth if he will be visiting the cafe again. Seth affirmed, and both of them started to drive to the cafe. Sun was already down by the time they reached the cafe, and the driver parked the car in front of the gate. Instead of going in, he just kept on looking at her through the window. Her mom was working in the cafe, washing all the dishes and glasses, but she had a slight smile on her face. Not wanting to disturb her peace, he just looked quietly and ordered his driver to move on back to his home. Both of them drove to one of the costly-looking luxury apartments. The name of the apartment group was called Sunshine Group. Another one of the guards opened Seth's car door and welcomed him. After Seth got out of the car, a series of guards bowed down in front of him, welcoming him back. Opening his tie angrily, Seth told everyone to not embarrassing him when he is in his school uniform. It was raining a lot, and Seth was standing in front of one of the graves, and it had the photo of the same old man which was shown before. Seth just stood there silently contemplating everything. While he was quite standing, someone showed him an umbrella to shelter him from the rain. It was the big burly bodyguard. It told that it's okay and they should go back because it was getting cold. After thinking for quite a bit, Seth asked him that what kind of person was his father. The bodyguard was silent, but a little while later, breaking his silence, He told that his father was the one who became the strongest in South Korea. With nothing but his normal fists, changing his question, he asked him that why did he and her mom have to separate like this? He avoided the thing by saying that they had their own problems, but he did not need to feel alone because his parents were watching him the entire time. Seth becomes surprised upon hearing this disclosure. The guard went on to explain that he would go out in civil clothes in order to see him from hiding. Seth got even more shocked upon realizing that his father was always watching him. The guard went on to say what were the last words of his father before he passed away. The last thing that he said was to stop getting your ass kicked. It was embarrassing. Seth got instantly reminded of all the times he had not fought back because of his mom's promise. Every time that he was picked on the alleyways. Every time he was punched for not obeying someone. His father was there watching him, disappointed. Now, here back at the high school, the entire student council went on to visit Seth's classroom. Upon visiting, his eyes locked onto the corner of the class, over where Victor and Seth were completely asleep. The other students were completely mortified, and some even started to think that it would be better to just switch classes at this point. But the brown-hair girl called out to the council president. This is where the name of the brown-hair girl was revealed. Sophie. The council president called out to Sophie asking how Sophie stood up asking Jason that what was he trying to do over here. Jason asked her that who was the new kid in the class. Worried about Seth, Sophie asked him that did he do something wrong? But Jason assured her that everything was completely fine. He just wanted to talk with him for a little while. Just as he completed his sentence, Seth woke up in the middle of the conversation, giving a big yawn saying that how amazing the nap was. His eyes glued onto the council president who came to see him. Turning his eyes grim, Jason asked if he was free right now because he needed to talk with him for a little while. Knowing that something was not right, Seth's mood also got really tense. As a mockery, he asked Jason that who he was. Sophie worried that Seth might have offended Jason a little too much. She instantly stepped in saying that he was their student council president. Now knowing who he was, Seth instantly apologized for his behavior and asked if he had done something wrong. But then instantly turning his face sour, he told that was there is any need for him to get out of the class? Could not they complete the conversation right here and now? This kind of disrespect instantly caused hundreds of veins to pop out of Jason's forehead, showing his towering figure over Seth. Jason just asked him to quietly follow him and not ask any questions. Before going away, he also told him to bring Victor along with him. Now, a little bit worried, Sophie said that Jason was a good guy, but he should just be quiet and obey what he says. Seth said that there was nothing to worry because he was the president of the student council, saying that he instantly poked in the midriff of Victor, causing him to jump up in surprise. Collecting himself, Victor asked him that what did he want. Seth explained everything about how student council came into the room and asked him to go along with Victor. Super annoyed at this point, he threw his bench back at the lockers. Standing up, he held his head groaning about why the heck is everyone so annoying today, and slowly got up and started to walk towards the student council office. Seth asks him to not go on forward by himself and wait for him to come. Seth saw Sophie sitting in the corner of the class really worried on what might happen now. Trying to reassure her, he gave a slight little smile and pointed to himself that he will be back in a little while completely safe. Now at the student council room, Jason was waiting for the arrival of both Seth and Victor. Both of them reached the council room, but Victor brought along a chair so that he can sit. Right in front of the president, he turned around his chair and plopped himself right onto the top of it. While Seth was sitting right at the back, Victor was angry and asked Jason that why there was he summoned over here. Jason, setting up his glasses, told that he will not be around the bush and get straight to the point. Jason asked that few days ago when Victor fought with a guy named Brock Chang, did he know who he was? Both of them were confused upon hearing the name Brock Chang. But since Jason mentioned he fought him, he instantly got reminded of the burly guy yesterday, who had held his neck and tried to punch right in his face the guy from yesterday. Pointing his gaze towards Seth, Jason said that up until 2 years ago, this school was a special school just for athletes. The government took care of most of the school's amenities while sending most talented athletes over here. Students came from all over the country to this school. Every single kind of athleticism and sports were practiced in clubs and in school. Victor, annoyed, asked that what was the point of reciting the obvious. But Seth over at the behind was thankful that he was not asked about this because he did not knew about it. Continuing, Jason said that this top-level athletic school was just turned into a regular school now, and all of this happened because Brock Chang dropped out of the school. And now, he was back at the school and the reason for him was just to find Seth. Making his vision really grim, he asked Seth that what was his relationship with him. Seth did not answer and was silent for a little bit. Because for him, Brock Chang was a nobody because he did not even knew anybody with that name. Here on the other side of the school in the counseling room, the gym teacher was in a counseling session with Brock Chang where he was just informed that he had joined the national team. But Brock was just sitting silently without uttering a single word. But the teacher could not understand that why was he not happy because it was his goal since the beginning of his career. But Brock did not answer anything and just stood up saying that he will take his leave now. The teacher let him go, but just before he went out of the door, he called out to him for one last time. The teacher told him to never give up on sports no matter what happens because it was his only dream. Brock just silently looked at him and silently closed the door behind him. Over here in the student council room, the council president continued the story by saying that the school was in an uproar after the fight. This fight happened when Jason was just a normal student of the class. All of the juniors and seniors were completely suspended along with the guy who was the center of it all, Brock Chang. At the scene of the site, it was just a massacre. Brock Chang had beaten through every single one of them, leaving them on ground. The fight was so intense that Brock was left with a bleeding cut on his forehead. Jason added that all those who were defeated were not normal people. All of them were athletes, with 2 of them were national representative and 7 were in the U18 national team. Brock, who was the center of it all, was nearly jailed to juvenile detention. And a member of the judo club who was supposed to join the national team but could not because of the accident. The incident became such a huge incident that literally every single one abandoned the school sponsors and the school became a normal school instead of a sports school. The one who helped Brock back in the day was their current gym teacher. He helped Brock avoid expulsion and being sent to juvenile detention. Victor listened to everything super seriously, but Seth was just a yawning. And now the source of every problem that happened to the school had returned because of Seth. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Victor looked around to see who Seth actually was. But keeping the same nonchalant response, Seth answered that he still did not know who this person was and why he needed something from him. Both Victor and Jason were also confused as well. The entire meeting with the student council president took a lot of time and it was already dusk. Victor and Seth left the school together, but at the school gate, Sophie were standing at the side. The first one to notice her was Victor. Then Seth also realized that she was standing there. Looking at Sophie, Victor made a really big smirk. Sophie, now realizing both of them are out, asked that were all of them okay. But Victor kept on grinning towards Seth, saying good luck to him, and that he will be off now, and he does not want to intrude in between them. Seth did not understand what Victor was pointing at and looked at him cluelessly. After Victor was gone, Sophie slowly approached Seth, and said like a dense person straight up asked her if she was waiting for him at the doorway. Sophie was really surprised. Wanting to hide her embarrassment, Sophia put her bag in front of her face, hiding her face. Seth could not understand what she was trying to do. Seth was once again confused by the actions of the people in front of him. Calming herself down, she asked her if he knew who she was. With a super confident voice, he readily answered that he knew who she was. She was the class representative. By now, Sophia was a little bit embarrassed, but she continued asking him that she was not talking about the recent times. She was talking about her childhood. But surprisingly, Seth said that he knew her, which surprised her a lot. Seth said that he knew her from their spring daycare during childhood in the Deer class. They were friends back then and they hung out a lot. They were pretty close. Sophia could not utter anything and was just stunned at how well he remembered her. Seth kept on explaining that what they both used to do, and slowly Sophia's smile came back. And then her smile turned into a big grin as she was really happy to finally find her friend back. We turned back to a flashback where in the daycare, Seth had climbed up a tree in order to protect a cat that was stuck on the branch. And on a separate day, both he and her were playing hide and seek at the daycare. They were really the closest friends back then. One another day, Sophia suddenly gave Seth a kiss on his cheeks. This caused both of them to start blushing around each other. Sophia, being reminded of all of this, began to smile to herself. While she was stuck in her dream, Seth told her to not worry because he won't share that secret. The secret about how she had kissed him on his cheeks. He said that it was okay and not to worry because there were kids after all, and kids did stupid things. Sophia's mood got summed when she realized that Seth called her first kiss as something stupid. While still stuck in the bad mood, she noticed that rest of the student council staff members were coming out of the school. Trying to hide her embarrassment for looking stupid, she tried to make an excuse, shouting out that she was not there to see him. Calling out to Jason, she ran towards him while Seth was here confused as to what just happened. The only thing he saw last was Sophia walking alongside Jason and rest of the community members, and both of them laughing and talking with each other. Seth gave a bittersweet smile that at least Sophia was having a good life. Walking towards his home, he realized that both of their worlds were too far apart. They don't need to intersect with each other. She does not need to remember the promise she made to him, the promise that was made in between them when both of them were still kids. The problem is that when both of them will grow up, they will get together with each other. Seth, with a solemn expression, and Gate walked towards his car to go back home. His driver was once again sleeping inside the car and forgot to open the door for Seth. But using the master key, he was able to get inside the car, and the driver woke up from the little amount of commotion. Realizing that it was his young master, he instantly jumped up, asking for forgiveness for sleeping. Seth was annoyed as to why he was always so jumpy. Before starting the car, he asked Seth that did he want to go back to his mother's place for visiting once? Seth said that he was not in the mood for it today and told him to directly drive till the company. Starting the car, he zoomed past the school and reached to his company building. Inside the company, there was the chairman's room, inside which Seth was sitting on the chair resting, whereas the bodyguard was standing right beside him. Removing the book cover from his eyes, he took a look at the amount of work that had been laid on top of him. Seth cursed to himself, saying that just how much amount of work he has to do now. But the bodyguard shouted out and told him that he needs to speak professionally when he is at work. It was the same burly guy who showed him the father's photograph for first. Seth groaned to the bodyguard that did he need to do this much because he was not even the official chairman yet. Keeping his turn, he told Seth that this company was the result of his father's blood and sweat, and he should not disrespect it like this. And since he was his only family, it was just given that he was going to inherit the company one day anyway. Throwing a bunch of papers on the table, he told that he was just 17. Now, all of this economics to him was completely new, and he could not understand anything. The bodyguard angrily called out to Seth as the young chairman, because Sunshine was not just any average corporation. Sunshine was a company whose roots were deep inside what people might call gangs. But Seth was still not convinced as to why would this force him to work. The bodyguard continued saying that he needed to work because they needed to look legitimate from outside. Because legitimately and legally, their company was involved in leisure, finances, constructions, and sports. Their company also were involved in large hotel franchises and countless small businesses. And to take all of this started from the very underworld. Softening his voice, he put his hand onto Seth's shoulder, saying that he was correct in saying that he needed to wait for 2 years before officially taking over, and then only they can prepare for his succession and inauguration legally. But that only mattered legally because for the underworld, things like succession and integration did not amount to anything. The guard went on to tell him further that he was going to be okay because he was the only son of their boss who was already accepted by all the executives. Things will be really smooth for him. Looking at the mountain of responsibilities in front of him, Seth just gave out a big sigh. Just as they were quiet, the phone on the chairman's table started to beep. Instead of Seth, it was the bodyguard who picked up the phone. Picking up the phone, he asked what was wrong, who was calling. With an extremely blurry static voice, a person told the chairman bodyguard that people have come from Busan to come to do something before getting the call cut. Just as he was about to keep the phone at its place, the door to the chairman's office was banged open. With an angry voice, the bodyguard asked that what was he thinking by doing this kind of disrespect. It was the Sunshine's group's Busan branch chief Derek. He asked to the bodyguard that was he not allowed inside or something. The bodyguard said that if he was going to go ahead with this, it is going to be considered a treason. But all of these taunts did not affect Derek, and he just said, "Go to hell." Derek angrily shouted on saying that, "Were all of them gone mad or something?" Even though he was the boss son, he was just a little kid by now. Getting up from his place, the bodyguard angrily shouted out to him that, did he had it with Death Wish or something? But Seth put a hand in front of him, stopping him from the attack. Derek, realizing he and his goons will not be able to fight against such a powerful group, so he just got quiet. Seth went up to him saying that it has been a little while, asking him how his nose was. Derek said that he knew he was at fault because he was careless that one time, which got his nose beaten up. But Seth replied that did Derek come here just so that he can get rematch. He got surprised because this was not how he wanted a conversation to go. A moment later, he started to taunt Derek, saying that he was going to absolutely beat him because he was completely angry. Derek then jumped on the top of his table, which he was going to use as a base. And then he jumped straight front towards Derek and his goons, saying that he was not going to win this time. Derek was completely caught off guard by the kick that was flying straight to his face. Seth kept on giving his signature roundhouse kick directly to his face and crushed a lot of bones. It was a new day at Seth's high school. All of the club council members were standing at the gate trying to filter out those who came late. After a little while, Seth came to his school on his own luxury car and the driver bid him goodbye. The club council's president's eyes locked onto Seth's own luxury car, out of which he came out walking. And in the similar way, Seth's eyes also locked onto the president's eyes, but he did not say a single word. So he and the president were stuck in sort of a stalemate. But Seth completely ignored the club president and went on to walk ahead towards his class. Inside the school, over to the corner, Brock and his little goon brother were sitting at the corner. And Brock told his little brother to absolutely do whatever he could to bring Seth to him. At the gate, the club president was worried about what was going to happen to Seth. And Brock and his little brother were waiting at the end of the corridor. The previous day, the council president had told everyone that Brock was lurking around the school trying to find Seth, and he asked everybody to stay very off him and to not initiate any fights. But the judo club president slammed his hand on the table and shouted out that who did Brock think he was just coming in and going out whenever he feels like it, and why did they need to be careful around him? Hearing is complained. Jason took a deep breath. And then, the Kendo Club president told that Brock was a national representative now, and there was no reason for him to come here and pick a fight with them. The Kendo Club president said that this is exactly what was pissing him off, because why were they going through all of this headache just because of him? Seeing that the commotion was increasing, Jason shouted out to everybody to stay quiet. He said that everything that happened was already in the past. Nothing could be changed now, and there was no crying over spilt milk. Hearing at how hopeless situation they were, the judo club president could just clenches his fists and shouts out that, why did he come here in the first place? He came here because this was one of the special athletic schools, not a place of these problems, and now everything was ruined because he got into a fight. The other club members, one by one, started to agree with him, but did not fight him. All the other club members were so torn apart by the situation that none of them could say anything. Showing his anger, the judo club president kicked his chair across the room, and the chair went flying, crashing into the wall. He added that he will not sit silently and just take everything. He is going to give Brock what he deserves. He is not going to leave even a single bit. He is going to count every single coin. At this point, there was literally blood in the judo club president's eyes. Jason realized that stopping him at this point was completely useless, so he also stayed quiet. Here on the other side of the school, Brock's little brother went inside Seth's class. And just as always, both Seth and Victor were completely asleep. The little brother quietly walked up to Seth's chair without making a single noise. And really quietly and silently, he tapped Seth to wake him up. Seth turned around to ask the little brother what happened. He just quietly said that he and his older brother needed to talk a little while. Without getting up, Seth put his head back onto the table, saying that anything he wanted to say, he will listen in the class. He does not need to go anywhere. Just as he completed his sentence, he went back to sleep. But the little brother kept on shouting that it was really important and he needed to be outside. Completely asleep and slumped up, the little brother somehow picked up Seth and brought him outside to where Brock was waiting for him. But the little brother was still really afraid of him and was keeping a 10-feet distance between him. Seth asked the little brother why was he not coming with him, even though he was the one who first told him to go out. Whereas Victor had his head on the table the entire time. But he was not asleep. He was quietly watching everything that unfolded in front of his eyes. Outside, Sophia and her friends saw that the little brother was taking Seth to someplace. She again thought, what the heck happened now for them to go together like this? Outside the school, Brock was sitting completely unimpressed, asking the leader that this is all that they had got. And in front of him, all the best school fighters were completely defeated to knockout. Brock, now increasing his anger, asked quietly, was this the strongest man they had at hand? But the judo club's leader's head was popping with veins just from anger. Knowing that only he was up now, he himself dashed forward, taking a big leap towards Brock, directly attacking him midway. But Brock was able to block his entire weight of his attack with just his forearm. And then, instead of letting go off his leg, he grabbed it in the same place. And before Brock broke his leg, he told the judo club leader to say a prayer. The leader could not understand that why was he asking him to pray for now. But before he could even do anything, he instantly got dragged out under the table, and Brock whipped him out like a big whip and slammed him onto the ground like a big basket, defeating him. Brock clicked his tongue at how disappointing this fight was again. With a bleeding nose and white-out eyes, the judo club president was completely knocked out. As a punishment, Brock said that he was going to make sure that he never walks again. But just as Brock was going to break his leg, Jason came in to save the day and shouted out to stop. Jason turned around to see who was the one who stopped him and surprised that it was the president. He turned around to ask him that why was the president here and what did he need from him. Realizing his own objective, Brock stopped at the moment and said that he came to the school just to meet the new kid. Now him angry Jason said that if he wanted to meet someone, he can meet them outside the school. There was no need to make any kind of scene inside the school. Brock commented that since he came from a wealthy family and being the school president, nothing could scare him now. But this was no ordinary person. He was Brock Chang. But Jason commented that it did not matter where he came from. He was not going to let Brock destroy the peace and reputation of the school once more. But just as they were talking, two guys came from behind the alleyway. It was Seth and the little brother. The little brother was able to lure out Seth out into the playground where Brock was in. And the Seth and Brock met face to face after a long time. Brock's face got riddled with anger the moment he saw him. But Seth was just happy upon recognizing another friend from his neighborhood. But without even a single word, Brock instantly got into his fighting stance and started to storm slowly and menacingly towards Seth. Instantly reading the room, Seth also got into his battle formation and gripped his punch as hard as possible. But before Brock could reach Seth, Jason stepped in, stopping him, now angry till his neck. Brock said that if he did not want to die, he should move. But Jason was stuck at just one thing, that he did not wanted this fight to happen at the school. He wanted it to happen somewhere else. By now, Brock had enough of Jason's bullshit and changed his target towards him instead now. So he started his attack by flaring out his palm right to Jason's face. But Seth came in between and asked Jason to step aside or he might get hurt. This one was completely surprised at Seth taking the initiative here. Seth explained himself that Brock came here just to see him, and there was no need for anybody else to get involved. But Jason declared that if they caused any kind of trouble to the school itself, but Jason cut him off, saying that there was no need because he will make sure nothing like this happens. Brock was just silent and impressed at how confident Seth was. Moving towards him, Seth advised Brock that they should fight in the gym because there were too many people here that can get hurt. He said that they can wear gloves and do it in the ring, or they can wrestle on the mat. He was up for anything. There were no rules. Brock was silent and did not say anything and just move ahead with it. Seeing his expression, Seth taunted that he was angry that Seth was not afraid of him. Brock made a hand expression which showed that he did not care. Seeing the hand expression, Seth got angry, saying that, did he look like someone who would be scared to fight? Fortunately, the taunt was able to get to Brock and he got even more angry. Seth assured the council president that he did not need to worry because he was going to fight only as a sport. All of the kids at the school were getting completely crazy at the mention of a fight with Brock and the new kid. The location of the fight was declared out to be the boxing club. At the gym, every single one came to watch the fight between the new kid and Brock. The gym was completely full by now. But Brock did not lose his cool. He was quietly looking at Seth. Seth also understood what he meant, and he also looked with his serious expression. And then, with his smirk, he changed into his PE clothes to fight better. And Brock got into his fighting clothes as well. Jason was standing at the side just wondering what the heck was going to happen now. But Sophia started to tease around Jason, saying that who was the cool guy who was saying that he would take care of everything just a few minutes ago. Over at the balcony, the bully guy saw that the fight was between Brock and none other than Seth himself. Just as the match was about to start, the gym teacher came in shouting that what the hell was happening. Everybody was surprised and looked at the teacher who came in just now. Realizing that the teacher was here now, everybody understood that they were in deep trouble. But Seth and Brock kept on tensioning their muscles. While Sophia tried to pin the blame on Jason, the gym teacher did not listen to anybody and just kept on stomping till the gym. Seth came to the edge of the ring to ask the teacher that what was the trouble. The gym teacher then slammed something really hard onto the fighting field. It was a boxing gloves which were created to protect the knuckles and palms. The gym teacher shouted that not a single spar could be done without proper equipment for protection. He barged himself, saying that he will be the referee, and under the MMA rules there will be 3 rounds of 3 minutes per round. Both of them quietly listened to the gym teacher talking over them. But now, after listening to the rules, a big grin came onto Seth's face. All the people went and shouted into all of the classes that there was going to be a major fight in between Brock Chang and Seth. Sophia could not believe what she just heard from her ears. And at her, behind where Victor was sleeping on the table, he slowly raised up, saying that now this was some trouble. Now in the training ring, both Brock got into his position, and Seth had a creepy smile spread across his face. The gym teacher, now referring to the match, told that to maintain sportsmanship and remember that this is just sport. Turning to the teacher, asked that he needed to ask something to Brock before starting the fight. He turned around to Brock and asked him, that was he doing this fight because of their tiny fight that they had in the kindergarten, like some kind of loser? Brock felt extremely humiliated at this underhanded commentary, but collecting his breath and calm, he told to Seth that it was the only time someone was able to defeat him in a fight. Seth just stayed quietly and listened to him, saying that Brock added that the reason he wanted to fight was to clean up his winning streak. The referee rang a big bell, shouting out both of them to begin. Brock instantly started off by using his palm as a palm strike to Seth's face, but Seth was able to dodge it. Using his right hand, Seth grabbed down to the Brock's arm from behind. Using that as leverage, Seth grabbed onto the neck next and gave a super strong kick directly to Brock's solar plexus. This direct straight attack left Brock grabbing his stomach in the middle of the fight, while Seth was busy waiting for his next attack. Brock was losing his breath over here, not giving him a chance to recover. He gave another punch directly to Brock's neck, and using the force, he slammed him onto the ground directly. Everyone was completely surprised at the sudden turn of the event. Now this was the deciding moment for the match. Was Brock going to get up to fight or not? Looking towards the gym teacher said, "Ask that." Why was he not counting for the knockout? What was he waiting for? The moment he completed that sentence, he instantly realized that Brock was getting up. There, Brock was gaining his stance and standing back up. But now he was in a much feral condition compared to before, in which he was much calmer. Although his breathing was still labored, he kept on standing. The audience voices broke out in cheers at his tenacity and his strength. While Seth was getting ready for his next round of match, Sophia came in running through the door to see what was happening. She came in so hard that she was completely drenched in sweat and her hair was totally unkempt. Over here, Brock got into another fighting stance by crouching down and pulling out his punch. But Seth did not choose any fighting stance, and he just stood there quietly. After waiting for a moment, Brock jumped on Seth, and he was moving towards him at an incredible speed. It was at this point when Seth took a fighting stance. Pulling out his punch, he said that it would have been better if he would have just laid on the ground. He got into the position to stop Brock's advance and block his attack. At first, he moved to the side, dodging the initial attack of Brock. But this time, instead of his neck, Seth took his hand towards Brock's hair and grabbed it from his behind. Using his hair as a leverage, he began on pulling him around the entire floor and slammed it onto the ground with his face facing forward. Brock grabbed onto his head, groaning in pain. But same as before, without even giving him a second to gain his composure, he let the onset of his next attack. Getting on top of Brock, he aimed his punch directly onto his face. Brock realized that at this point he was in deep trouble, and the punch came in an attack straight onto his face. Worrying for Brock, his little brother screamed out to him. The gym teacher could not believe at how powerless his most amazing student had become. All of the smile and smicker on the council's face had gone by this. The last one to reach there and witness this fight was Victor. Sophia was so afraid that she glued her mouth and gashed in exaggeration. After punching multiple times on Brock's face, the gym teacher shouted out Seth to stop the fight. But by this point, Seth had already given around 10 to 20 punches to Brock's face, and the entire arena was covered in Brock's blood. Brock was bleeding out of his entire face from his nose, his mouth, his ears, everywhere. And Seth's face, his clothes, and his punching gloves were completely covered by blood by this point. The next scene started at the Sunshine Hospital. The hospital corridors were completely busy and full of life. And within one of the corridors was sleeping Brock with all of his wounds bandaged up and a big cast on his left hand. Slowly and slowly, Brock got his consciousness and woke up. And to welcome him, his gym teacher was sitting by the side and said that they had brought him to hospital after he had passed out at the arena. They told that he needed to get rest for 2 continuous months straight. Brock could not understand why was this the case and just looked at the teacher cluelessly. The teacher continued on to explain that during the fight he had a ruptured skull, broken nose, and broken ribs. All of them were fixed. The teacher continued on to explain that during the fight he had a ruptured skull, broken nose, and broken ribs. All of them were fixed. He told that he called Brock's team to let them know. He asked what did he say to them. He told them that it was some kind of injury during his training, so the team will pay for the expenses. But due to this, the person who was ranked just below him was going to be on the national level. But Brock just quietly heard that and did not show any kind of emotions, not happiness, sadness, anything. Seeing how quiet he was, the gym teacher angrily called out to him for trying to get involved in kids' fights. But Brock, with a silent tone, just said that it does not matter anymore at this point, because he found something way more interesting compared to wrestling. Now, in the class, everybody was completely wary of Seth and were thinking twice before saying anything around him. People were so scared, they were even scared to approach him at all. This included both boys, girls, and class bullies. Quite bored, Seth just gave out a big sigh. The moment Seth let out any kind of sound, both of the people around him instantly got scared. Wanting to take a little bit amount of break, he went out of the class for a walk. But the moment he stepped out to the alleyway, he saw something weird happen to the rest of the group. Everybody was completely busy trying to make sure that they did not make any kind of eye contact with Seth. Near the urinal, some of the kids were talking about what was going on in the school. One of the kids informed the others that Brock Chang got defeated by the new kid. Hearing this, the other two could not even believe whether this was true or not. As they were speaking, one of the kids got absolutely stunned in place. The second kid asked what had happened to him. There was Seth standing in the doorway asking the bully kids to move out of his way. Not wanting any kind of trouble, the rest of the kids instantly sprang up and started to run away. Just then, Victor came into the urinal and stood right beside Seth. While completing his business, Victor asked that was he free for some time after school? Seth wondered what this was all about. Victor turned around to Seth for any kind of response. With a growling face, Victor said that Seth took his prey, just saying that he walked away from the urinal. Before going, he explained that he was looking for a sparring match with Seth in the boxing ring at 8 alone. Seth's face scrunched up at the mention of having to fight another fight. Slowly, time went by, and the time for the sparring match came about. So, in the recap, Victor ordered to Seth to have a match at 8 p.m. in the gym as assert dominance. The first one to reach the gym was Victor. He turned on the lights and went inside waiting for Seth. Walking up to the stage, taking a big sigh, he threw his bag onto the ring. Opening it inside, he pulled out one of his boxing gloves that he always used to fight in his matches. Holding the glove, he got reminded of the time he had to fight Brock. Exactly the moment in which Brock slapped him. Being able to evade and dodge the previous hand, Brock used his other hand to choke Victor. And the same guy who always looked so intimidating was suddenly completely powerless in front of some scrawny dude like Seth. He got reminded of the time when Seth just used one of his punch to literally bury Brock's head into the ring, and the constant barrage of attacks directed at its head without any kind of mercy. For Victor, this was not a scene of a fight. This was scene of carnage. He was afraid. He started to sweat all around, but he could not live in fear. He had to brace himself. He had to fight this back or else he will be always a coward. He started to grip his gloves really hard, gritted his teeth, and asked himself how come he, Victor, out of all people, was afraid of a single fight. But time passed on like nothing. 7. Brock 8.8. 13. It was already past the time. Victor had told Seth to arrive at. Enough waiting is enough. Victor's temper started to rise when he saw that Seth was not coming. Flexing his muscles in anger, he looked at the clock shouting, "Where the fuck is Seth?" But Seth was over here at his company's Sunshine Group of corporations. He was completely buried in a lot of documentations and work which piled up like mountains in front of him. Raising his voice meekly, he told his bodyguard that he cannot do this much amount of work as he had promised someone to meet them at certain place. The bodyguard shouted back saying that he cannot go right now as he has to take care of his company. But Seth refused that he has to go because he had promised it beforehand and he cannot break his promises now. So even this much amount of persuasion was not enough, as the bodyguard strictly refused that it did not matter how important the friend was, he has to stay and work. It was the next morning already. The day was a clear one and someone was running in the tracks. It was Victor. He was practicing his stamina by running on the tracks early morning. After practicing for a little bit, he went to catch a breather in the Rotary Boxing Gym Club room. He took off all of the equipment he had on him in the respective places and wiped himself dry with a towel. Just as he was going to freshen himself up, he crossed a numerous number of golden cups that were kept cleanly in cabinets on a shelf beside him. But Victor did not give that much of a thought to the medals and kept on in his way. After taking a breather, he restarted his workout by punching a sandbag in the middle of the gym. His eyes were filled with rage. He was punching them as if he had some personal beef with them. At one point, he literally spun the entire bag around 180. Seeing what is causing this much amount of commotion this early in the morning, certain someone visited a gym telling Victor that he does not need to work that hard because he does not even have any match coming up. Without even turning his head around, he explained that he needed to be prepared for what was in his future. That's why he wanted to practice. The person, seeing that Victor could not recognize him, called him out once again to look who even this person was. This person was Victor's uncle. He was worried that Victor was giving in too much effort for a game that no one even is watching, and he advised him to change to MMA instead. Hearing the reason, Victor shouted out that he does not wear these gloves for money only, showing his concern. The uncle said that he was just worried about Victor, that he might hurt himself, but Victor assured it that he was not going to overexert himself. He will just continue to practice until he becomes the world champion. After that, he will take a deep rest. Seeing that there was no way to convince Victor, Uncle just gave out a big sigh, feeling hopeless. Seeing Uncle's dejected face, Victor tried to cheer him up that they will soon get an official match so that they can earn some money. Giving his last greetings and goodbyes for the day, he told Uncle that he was going to go to school now. So, completing all his personal assignments, Victor ran out of his way towards the school. But just a moment later, a black minivan pulled up to the gate of the gym with conspicuous darkened windows. Out of this minivan, few dangerous-looking people with black suits walked out. These people are realtor goons. They came to buy the building of Uncle, which was the gym. Claiming that they were no thugs, they said that they will pay the appropriate price for it. Over here, Victor, after running for a little while, reached his school while still jogging. But the moment he entered the class, the only one who was there in it was Seth. He was asleep at the table, completely oblivious of anybody entering or going. Victor, being reminded of the way he was completely ignored the last night, his temper grew a lot. Walking up to him, he glared at him, wondering how was he sleeping so peacefully when he himself was so angry. Trying to wake him up, he gave a strong kick at Seth's chair, shaking him down. With a completely sleepy face, Seth woke up looking as if he would ask the next moment which planet he was on. He wondered why would any teacher try to wake him up when it was not even 7 a.m. It turned around to see that it was no teacher that woke him up, rather it was Victor. Thinking that he might want to sit there, he greeted him morning. Although there was no malicious intent, but Victor still felt really insulted. He shouted to Seth that he was not joking around at all. Showing a hand around, he apologized, saying that he was unable to come as there was a lot of work from the company yesterday. Not believing his bullshit, Victor asked that all the hell is he working when he was still in high school. Seth also agreed with his sentiments. Victor offered another piece of challenge to Seth, saying that he might have ran away from the last one, but he was absolutely going to make sure that he won't be able to do it this time. But the word ran away offended Seth's ego quite a lot. He instantly woke up, removing all his sleepy face, and stood in front of Victor. Wearing a creepy smile, Seth leaned into Victor's ears as if he had to say something. He said there was a reason for him to come to school this early into the morning. Seth said that he was a kind person who never ever turns down someone who wanted to fight with him. Although these kind of remarks amused Victor for a little while, but then changed his emotion to complete anger, shouting that how dare he mock him like this. This time no gym, no ring, no protection, no equipment, nothing. Straight fight. Victor threw a roundhouse punch directly aimed at Seth's face. His punch connected to something because it created a large impact and made a really loud sound which reverberate the entire room. On the first, he was happy that he was able to make the first shot, but what he saw instantly shocked the hell out of him. The punch had not connected to Seth in any way. It was his hand. Seth held Victor's punch by just his hand. With a soft, somber smile, Seth congratulated Victor that he has a really strong punch compared to everyone he has fought. But Seth's attack was not a straight cut like Victor. He held out Victor's arm and began to use his grip power to crush everything that was in his hand. Although feeling a lot of pain, Victor did not back down. But Seth kept on mocking him. That does he want to keep going? Does he feeling tired? Now, clearly angered and triggered by the taunt thrown by Seth, he redid another of his punch and attacked his face once more. Both of them kept on punching each other, and Seth just kept on dodging each of the punch. Now, after dodging and being pushed around, Seth reached the end of the class where he could not go back any further. Seeing that this was a once-in-a-million chance, Victor began his run to give a momentum punch. But instead of taking his punch directly, Seth just slapped his hand, changing the entire direction to downwards, not taking even a second to breathe. He redid his left hand for uppercut punch this time. By now, even Seth was not holding back anymore. He brought up his own punches and blocks to fight Victor. Just as all of this fighting drama was going on through the class, another random guy came in yawning from sleepiness. But the moment he saw what was happening in the class, he instantly broke out in cold sweat and began shaking in his place. By this point, Seth had fought back few punches which Victor was able to block. But since they were interrupted, both of them gave a scary glare to the guy, saying that people were starting to come into the class and this was not a safe space to fight anymore. Seth said that they will continue later at the same place in the gym, even though they stopped their fight and did not cause any kind of damage, but the class knew about it all, and it was awkward as hell. Everybody was busy looking at them as if they had done some sort of illegal activity in the room. But both Seth and Victor did not give any thought to what the class was thinking about them. If they could, they would try to give even less thought if possible. Time was passing by, and by now it was 12 p.m., but both of them kept their anger in the class. A bit later, Sophie came into the room, trotting up to Seth, asking why was he not eating his lunch, and the moment he was reminded of the lunch, his stomach gave out a big growl as if he had not eaten since long. Making an idiotic face, he said that he should go get his lunch now and not dilly-dally around. So he left both of them and went on to go to the cafeteria. Sophie soon followed after his trot. But over there, Victor was losing his mind, commenting about how he should enjoy his time while he can and they will see who wins in reality. Commenting and cursing about him a little bit, he went back to sleep. After both Sophie and Seth had their lunch together, they went back to their classes. Seth went back to his seat beside Victor and instantly plopped his head to the ground, going to sleep. Sophie just showed a concerned face about him, wondering how he would fare in his near future. So the time passed as usual, and the dawn of the day came. So both of their prescribed time to fight also came to the present, and Victor jumped up from his seat. Looking at Seth, he rudely prompted him to follow him to the gym without running away like last time. Seth was compliant this time, so both of them left the school heading for the gym where Victor normally practices his boxing class. Seth, after walking for a little while, asked, "That was the place far or near?" worrying that he might escape once again. Victor turned around to catch hold of him, but instead of running away, he was getting into the back of a luxury car, pointing his gaze towards Victor as if he wanted to say something. He advised Victor to hop on into his car so that they can reach there faster because he does not have a lot of free time on his hands. After both of them sat in the back of the car, the meek driver asked where did he want his destination to be. The destination was the boxing gym. Outside the gym, the meek driver was smoking a cigarette, wondering about just what the hell was happening and when can he go home. But just then another group of people jumped out of the same minivan that was parked in front of the gym few days ago. These people were armed and ready to throw hands if needed. They looked really dangerous. The meek driver just silently observed them without saying anything. Back at the gym, Victor brought out all of the boxing equipments, giving one pair to Seth, telling him to come up on the stage. Seeing that it was his first time to this place, Seth surveyed his eyes around a little bit to see what kind of place this was. His eyes got hooked onto one of the pictures that was hung on one of the walls of the gym. It was a pro-professional fighter holding onto a worldwide federation belt while their kid was showing the biggest smile. Getting into the position, Victor shouted out to Seth that why was he wasting time now? Since he did not had any in the first place, urged him to come up, continue the fight. Victor said that he had his eyes on Seth since the very first day he came to the school. But Seth replied that he should bullshit a little bit less because since the first day he has seen him only sleeping in the class. And once again, Victor fell prey to such an obvious taunt. Getting into the position, he asked if he was ready to fight or not. Now, Seth began to take off his tie and his shirt to allow him a little bit more mobility to fight. But what approached him absolutely scared the shit out of Victor. Seth had lots of cuts, gunshot wounds, scars, and keloids from a lot of fights over the years. But Victor was not scared of this at all. He got into the position saying that Seth will be dead meat any moment now. And so the fight started. The first attack came from Victor, who used his left hand to put up an uppercut directed at Seth's face. But not even a second later, Victor's uncle slammed in through the door, shouting out to where he was. Really out of breath from all the running through the stairs, he could not even utter what he wanted to say, but it was clear that something was terribly wrong. He shouted out after catching his breath that there were some people outside the gym that had come to attack him and he wanted to tell that to his nephew to run to safety. Seth was unamused by this, another obstruction in between his match. He wondered who the hell these people were. So reluctantly, he got back dressed and came outside of the gym, only to find the meek instructor angry lecturing someone. Seth saw that all of the guys who had come to harass Victor's Uncle Jim were completely knocked out to the ground and made to stand in punishment position to repent for what they had done. Seeing this interesting development, Seth went on to ask his meek driver, who were these people? Just as usual, he got startled again from seeing Seth and pointed to the guys saying that they were about to attack the gym. He then asked if he knew the identity of these people and if they were affiliated with someone they knew. The meek driver said that he had no idea these people were, they just came to attack. And now, seeing that these idiot guys were the reason for his second interruption in fight, he called out to one of them to take care of them by himself. He took one of the guys and drove him back to Sunshine Company to talk with him. In the chairman's office, he made one of those guys sit in front of him as if he wanted to interrogate them. Sitting in his chair, Seth asked, what was the matter? Why were they attacking the gym? The guy answered that the gym had unpaid debt. That's why they were trying to buy it from them legally. Hearing the entire matter from his mouth, Seth turned towards his bodyguard to ask what is the correct course of action from now. The bodyguard said that they will take the course of action which their chairman Seth prefers. It was the next day. Everyone had already reached the schools and sat themselves on the seats. Well, everyone except Victor. Victor was absent from school and teacher was asking the students what might be the reason for his absence. Every single classmate looked at him as if he sent him to the hospital. But as if answering to everyone's stare, he gave a big shrug as if he did not know what and where Victor was. The teacher is not giving any more thought about where Victor might be, said everyone he must be fine, and continued on teaching the class. So the class continued as usual. 12 p.m. came, and so did the lunch break time. Everybody caught together to their groups laughing and eating while completing the lunch break. But, amidst all the chaos, certain guy entered the room really loudly. He was so loud and scary the rest of the class completely got quiet and got out of his way. But this person's concern were not the rest of the classes, but rather Seth. He was sitting at the corner of the class. He slammed his hand on Seth's table as if he demanded answers for his actions. It was Victor. He had come to see Seth, telling him that he needed to talk about something, inviting him outside. Sophie gave another look of concern, worried about what was going to happen to both of them. Now, the location that they chose to talk was the back of the school corridor, where not many people would go about. Wanting to get straight to the point, Seth asked, what did he need to talk about? He does not have a lot of time to waste. Sharing the same sentiments of not wanting to waste any time, he pulled out a legal-looking envelope, asking what was the meaning of this. Victor went on to explain that this was a legal document that was given to him yesterday night. The paper contained all the list of rates, debts, every single record that Victor's dad had taken for the gym. And with an angry face, he asked, was he the one who paid it all off? Keeping the same annoyed face, Seth said that this was not the thanks he was expecting. Victor shouted out. It did not matter if he wanted to help or not. He should not have meddled into his family business. Seth, understanding what this was about, said that maybe this is the way he was trying to protect his last bit of pride. Seeing that his mockering was not over, Victor grabbed Seth by his collar, cursing him out. Seth, trying to give out straight logic here, told that he just gave it as a gift. If does not want it, he should just pay it back. And no, he shouted that this was not just about the money. The debt collectors even closed their office and ran away. Just what the hell did Seth did to them? Trying to divert the topic, he told not to worry about those matters and just focus on his boxing career. After all, he had promised his father that he would become the world's best boxer. Victor was stunned in his place that such an important personal secret of his was uttered by someone so distant. He felt completely silent and just walked away. But before he walked away, he gave one last piece of information that he will be always ready to continue their fight. Just as he was walking, Victor saw the difference in the position. Just who was this person, whose shadow could not be conquered? The entire time Sophie was peeking out through the building trying to see what was the commotion about. But since Seth used a different route to come back, Sophie could not see him right before he appeared before her eyes, scaring the shit out of her. Giving a shy look and twiddling her thumbs with her hair, she said that she was worried if he was fighting again. With a playboy attitude, Seth asked to 90, why was she worried about his safety? Unable to answer, Sophie completely turned red with shyness. But trying to control herself, she said that she did this because she felt responsible as a class representative, and she had to see what was going on. Seth mockingly agreed with her. But before going back, Seth gave Sophie the assurance that he was not going to fight anyone anymore. While walking away, Seth gave a small smile saying that she has not changed even a single bit. Always worrying about everyone, just like how she was back in kindergarten. This small gesture, this small act gave assurance to Sophie that she was not just air in Seth's mind. He remembered her clearly and he remembered everything about her. But they were not alone because as they were talking to each other, the council president was seeing this unfold in front of his eyes. And he was absolutely furious. He was furious as to how come someone lowlife like Seth was trying to get in cahoots with someone like Sophie. He should know his place. Now we come to an old-style Japanese house on a sunny day. Inside the house, a Yakuza-looking person with an injured face was kneeling down in front of someone as if trying to show respect or ask for forgiveness. The person that he was kneeling in front of was the three-headed ghost gang leader, Ryushin. The first thing he said that he was extremely disappointed on the work that the person had shown to him. With face that was nearing to cry, the man asked for forgiveness. Forgiveness and another chance to rectify what he has done wrong. And he added his own advice saying that since the heir of the company has not been confirmed, he should try to take over the Sunshine Group company. But the gang leader in anger bashed his smoking pipe onto the tatami mat rooms, breaking it into pieces. This action instantly shut the guy up and made him realize that if he wanted to walk out of their life, he needed to keep quiet. He said that even though the heir is really young, he's still the company heir, and he should not underestimate someone like that. The next order the gang leader told to the person was to find a weakness of the heir. As he was not an adult yet, a kid should be more vulnerable and more filled with weaknesses. The moment he started to hear the word weaknesses, only one scene started to flash in front of his eyes. It was a funeral day. Funeral day of Seth's father. That man was standing there. To be complaint with the funeral, both Seth and his mother were there to see their father off to the other side. That was the weakness that Seth had. His mother. He had a soft spot for her. The gang leader giving a small smirk, understanding that the guy understood his next assignment without even saying, said to take it slow and steady and make sure he absolutely succeeds. Now, back at school, a bunch of guys came in from another class into Seth's class. These group of kids looked really dangerous to be around with, and the leader among them had a big eye patch on his face. The leader went up to the class and shouted out that who was the new kid who joined halfway through the school year in this class. Seth reached his hand, saying that it was him that they might be searching for. Coming to the main point, he growled that how come Brock, such a best boxer, was able to lose from someone like him, wanting to talk or mostly fight again. The main guy called Seth outside of the classroom, but he did not comply. He sat stable in his chair, saying that was he some kind of dog, that everybody can just come around and ask him to go out and he will just wag his tail and agree with them. Just as everyone, this guy also got offended by the taunt he gave out. Amidst all the chaos, another guy came into the class saying to clear out. The first delinquent shouted out who he was. It was none other than Victor. He had come to the class after taking a holiday of one day. The head of the delinquents was preparing himself to fight both of the guys at once. But just then the president of the judo club came into the class saying that nobody should touch the new kid. He explained that no one should touch the new kid because he was eyeing him to make him join their judo club. Hearing this, Seth made the biggest what the hell face we had ever seen and was like, what the hell? This declaration stopped the rest of the guys in their places as well. While walking, the president of the kendo club gave out a small smile saying that the classes are so lively today. But his smile instantly turned into a frown when he saw that a bunch of other class clubs were coming towards his way. It was the wrestling club. They were surprised that both kendo and judo were trying to recruit Seth into their own teams. The kendo club president just gave a small smile, not explaining himself any further. And inside the class, Seth and the rest of the people didn't even knew that 3 of the strongest club were fighting over a single guy. But Seth did not care at all, because for him all of those seemed really fascinating. Although Seth was enjoying the time of his life, but same could not be said about the rest of the kids in the class, and Sophie understood it. So as the class representative, she felt compelled to speak up and tell them about it. Feeling really scared about the guys who had come into their class, she told them to take their matters elsewhere, as the rest of the class members were feeling really uncomfortable with the energy they brought here. The first guy said that he has some kind of unfinished business remaining with Seth. The second guy said that he wanted him to invite to the wrestling club. For the third one, it was the judo club. For the fourth and final guy, it was the kendo club that he came to scout Seth for. But mustering her last weight of strength and courage, she pushed all of them out of the class saying, it didn't matter, they have to leave the class. Pushing them out, she slammed the doors behind them. Turning around, she gave a smile to Seth saying that he should be fine from them for some time as she handled it. But her act of courage lasted only for a little while because all of the guys entered the classroom through the front door, ignoring her warning anyway. Further ignoring Sophie, all of them went to crowd Seth, asking them one by one to join their respective clubs, some even giving him bribes as to girls liking kendo clubs. As the ferocity of everyone fighting around them increased, Seth were stuck in a bind, thinking about how was he supposed to deal with all of them now. But as a savior, the gym teacher came in time shouting out to everyone, what are they doing crowding around Seth in the class? Just taking one look at everyone and everything present in the class. He was able to roughly estimate what was exactly going on here. Saying that they could complete their work later, he asked them to leave the class for now, further stating that he only got saved for now. The first guy leaned in saying that he will see to this later. After all of them left, the professor's gym teacher called out to Seth, saying to him that he needed to talk about something in the counselor's room. So Seth abided by the teacher and he went and visited him in the counseling room. He started the conversation by stating the state of their school, saying that their school was originally a place for talented athletes. With a hesitant voice, Seth agreed that he knew about the school's state and condition. The teacher finally said what he was truly meaning to say. He invited him to join any kind of sports. He said this because he knew what capability is Seth hold. He was able to witness this by the fight with Brock that he had a few days ago. He got reminded of the dreaded fight with Brock, who had come to the school unannounced, but somehow winning in the end. Teacher said that just like Seth, Brock was also a star athlete student. All of the clubs in the school fought to recruit him into their clubs, and the club fights turned severe over him, and his only worry was to not have the repeat of the same once more. Feeling a little bit annoyed but keeping his cool, Seth replied that he will be fine. He stated that he has to go home really early for work, and he does not have any time to dedicate for sports. The gym teacher slammed his hand onto the table, shouting that how come a fresh man be this much busy with work at this age? With a mocking smile, Seth also agreed with him that why does he have to work so hard? Annoyed by his attitude and sassiness, the teacher shouted that he should stop playing around like this and answer truthfully. Continuing with his nonchalant and slightly annoyed look, Seth said that he was not lying, and rather the kids who should be here are the ones who harassed him in the first place, not him who got harassed. The teacher got startled at such a look of logic from Seth. He continued his request, asking the teacher to tell the other kids to not bother him like this anymore. And at last he added that he never runs away from someone who is looking for a true fight. But this thing is just an annoyance to him. While all of this was playing inside the counseling room, someone was eavesdropping on them, listening to their conversation. It was the council president. He clicked his tongue in anger, annoyed at how arrogant a single person could be, talking to a teacher like this. Hearing the conversation and realizing that he needed to do something about it, he started walking towards some sort of base. It was a desolate, broken building with no signs of any life around it. The room inside was completely filled with smoke from a lot of delinquent kids' cigarettes. He entered the room wanting something to do with all of them. The leader amongst them gave out a big smile, saying, how come someone of such a high stature was coming to a dump like theirs? But for the president, even standing there was like a torture. He had to wear multiple layers of masks, holding his face just so that he does not pass out from the smoke and smell of the cigarettes. Knowing that he was not here just for funs and games, the person got straight to the point and asked what brought him here. With a grim face, he told the guy that he needed him to take care of someone for him. After the long and hard drills day, the day finally came to an end, and Seth left the school. But as he was walking to his car, a certain guy holding a steel pipe as a weapon came in through the hallways. He started to run, targeting Seth's head to beat with that steel pipe. Unfortunately, the attack connected and the guy hit Seth's head really hard with the steel pipe, and he passed out on the spot. A little while later, he began to gain his consciousness back, still really hurting from the attack on his head. When his vision cleared for a bit, he saw that he was in some kind of abandoned warehouse with a guy smoking in front of him. With a mockery and sarcastic voice, the guy said, "Good morning, sweetheart," to Seth. Seth instantly understood what situation he was in, but he was still in pain. The area where his head was hurt kept on bleeding and he was lying on the ground. Holding on to his head, he woke up to see where exactly he was in right now. The guy who hurt him in the first place kicked him in the back, shouting to not dilly-dally for any longer and get up. Fortunately for Seth, looking at the pipe in his hand and the build, understood that this was the guy who hit him. A guy in a corner told how come someone so weak as this guy could beat someone like Brock. Two other guys at the side taunted him to stop acting like some kind of hero, but he did not feel scared at all. Instead, he just cracked his neck. Still bleeding from his forehead, but now his face laced with a creepy smile, wondered what kind of interesting situation he was in right now. But seeing his creepy smile creeped the hell out of everyone who were expecting him to get scared instead. The first guy who hit the metal rod to Seth's head ran up to him to hit him once more. But the same thing was never going to work twice because, hey, realized what was coming and looked back. He instantly got into position and blocked the metal rod with his hands. Then using his other punch, he punched his hand, throwing the weapon away from his hand. The metal rod begins spinning through the air, flung by just the sheer force of the punch. It went and fell right at the feet of the leader of the group. Both of them were just astounded and just kept on looking at the rod which was still spinning before falling down. But the punch not only affected the rod, it also affected the guy who hit it. The force broke his elbow joint, which caused him to scream in pain. But Seth was just annoyed by how noisy he was over just a few broken bones. So he charged another big punch directed right at his face to shut him off for good. He had a really big smile as if he was wholeheartedly enjoying this fight. The punch connected and it hit right at the guy's neck, knocking the air out of his lungs. So the first guy was completely done with just 2 attacks. He was knocked out cold. Keeping his smile, he went on to ask what about the other guys? Weren't they also part of this group? He wanted to fight them as well. But the guys, instead of wanting to fight, they were all breaking out in cold sweat, scaring that who the hell did they mess up this time? Although he was momentarily scared, realizing the situation and power he had, a creepy smile creeped up the leader's face as well, saying that just how cocky can one be after beating just one guy? He ordered all of the guys who were surrounding him to beat him up to a pulp, now the worry completely leaving his face. After a brief standoff, the leader ordered everyone with a shout to fight, activating everyone's attacks. So everyone went on showing off their attack all at once. But the thing that occupied Seth's mind was not fear, but rather annoyance. Annoyance at how much time he has to wait fighting these weak goons. So he just closed his eyes and took a big sigh. Slapping both of his cheeks, he redid himself to fight off all of them at once. For the first guy with braids, he went and pulled on his collar to divert his force of attack, and then finished him off with a knuckle punch to the chin, which broke one of his teeth. For the next, it was an elbow punch right at someone's nose, completely breaking it down. But as he was fighting them, one guy from behind brought one of the chains, tying it around his neck. Seth realized he now fucked up. The chain was around his neck and both ends of the chain were in the goon's hand. He tried to stand again by hitting the back of his head to his face, trying to break his nose. But the guy was way too well built to be knocked down by a simple thing like this. So, as a mockery, he gave a smirk to Seth. Seeing that normal civil type of fight was not going to work out, he went on to use his guerrilla tactics. Seth jabbed one of his thumps directly into the goon's eye, blinding him permanently. Just then another of the guy was running towards him. Seth, using the force of his jab, began spinning the guy around, directing him towards the first guy. He then shoved the first goon along with the second goon. The force of the jab was so strong that it threw both of them far behind with a lot of speed. Seeing the brutality that this guy was willing to go to, the rest of the guys stopped in the tracks, hesitating to fight this guy anymore. But Seth had lost it at this point. He was spinning the chain around his hand as a steel knuckle, smiling valiantly, exclaiming at how fun something like this is. The leader saw that normal hand combat was not going to work in this place. He shouted everyone along with him to go and grab all of the steel bats to use as weapons. So now everybody had their weapons, none of them were empty-handed, and once again surrounded Seth to beat him up. But just as the first guy was running towards him, he, with a lot of ease, just dodged the attack which shook the ground. He continued the fight using their own weapons against them, a right jab, then a left jab. Hands, legs, thumbs, bats, nothing was off the table for him. He used everything at his advantage to throw everyone around him. But as he was running towards the rest of the guy, one of the goons held him back from behind, basically incapacitated him, whereas the guy in front of him prepared one of his bats to hit Seth. Using his left leg as a base, he jumped up and used his right leg as a kick. The kick, the chin of the guy who was swinging the bat, kicking him far behind to a safe distance. The force also knocked back the person behind him onto a sharp edge of a box. But even though he hit the guy was still not completely knocked out and had some amount of consciousness in it. So Seth turned around, breaking his hold, charged another punch right at his face. The punch connected properly this time, thus completely dissimulating all of his teeth and knocking him out cold. Another guy, unlike everyone else, kept silent while swinging his bat. And since he was silent, the attack was able to connect, hitting the left side of the head. But the attack didn't do much to Seth. Instead, it made him even more psychotic as he looked back with a really creepy smirk. So the fight kept on going between Seth and rest of the guys in the ransacked warehouse. And within just a few minutes, the boss was left with a view in front of his eyes that he never expected he would see his entire life. Every single one of his members were completely decimated to the ground, with not a single one standing up. And the only one who did was Seth. Scene of Seth in front of him. He got reminded of the time when he got beaten by a little kid. This little kid was none other than Seth himself, who used the brick to beat him up. Now, afraid and screaming for his life, he pushed back, crawling towards some sort of safety, trying not to offend him anymore. But Seth was not about to let him go like this. He grabbed him by his collar, pulling him up to his face, as if he wanted to interrogate him about something. With a bloodied face, Seth asked that who was the one who ordered this hit on him because they did not seem like affiliated with him in any way to hold any kind of grudge. The answer did not surprise him very much. The reaction he gave was similar to once before. Just a look of sigh. Without waiting even a single second, he started walking towards the council room to ask what the hell was this all about. There were still some kids even now in the student council room. Although some of them were feeling sleepy, some like the council president were absolutely active. Over here, the council president was getting more and more worried that why was the goon not contacting him yet to tell him the job was over? But the one who did contact him was none other than Seth, who slid open the door directly into the council president room. Seeing him bloodied like this, the president absolutely lost his cool and started sweating cold sweat. He shouted out to Seth, calling out his full name. He was scared and asking how did he manage to get here. But Seth did not give a damn. He did not utter a single word. He just held the president by his hair and slammed it down onto the ground, breaking the table. And he asked one question repeatedly. Why did he do it? Why did he order the hit on him? What did he ever do to him? But just at this moment, Sophie came into the room to ask something about the president. But seeing the scene, light left her eyes as she started to stutter. What the hell was going on in the room? Without answering anything, he grabbed a completely bruised with broken specs till a president showing his face to Sophie, bringing his face close to president's ear. He told that he got lucky this time because Sophie was there to save him, and thus dropping him off, he started to walk away nonchalantly. The rest of the girls in the student room were in the corner shaking. But Seth did not even care to explain himself or say why he was there. He just quietly crossed by Sophie, who was standing completely still, afraid and scared. The next day came by just as usual without any mercy. Everybody was engrossed in their task, but Sophie was sitting in shock at her school. She did not even look at others. Her gaze was down and her air around her seemed completely depressed. She was just reminded of the time a completely bloodied Seth just walked past her after hitting the club president without even explaining what happened. She turned around to see the place where Seth used to sit but now completely empty. But outside, Seth was sitting in the luxury cars along with his bodyguard and with some other people as well. The bodyguard said that he won't pry into what exactly happened the last night, but for his safety he is going to assign him some bodyguards. Holding his head, he groaned that this was not thing much. He was going to be fine. These bodyguards were just going to be a pain for him. The bodyguard telling him the gravity of the situation said that his face was completely cut up from bruises and weapons. This is not nothing. A little bit annoyed, Seth said that this was just a school brawl. There were no major party involved and there were no way a bodyguard can be brought into the school. Respecting his dignity, the bodyguard said that he won't tell the other guards to go inside the classes, but rather outside the school, as he knew that he can take care of himself. Things got more and more heated slowly. Seth kept on arguing that he did not need any kind of bodyguard as it would ruin his social life. Whereas the bodyguard said that he needs to give him some cards because even in the business things were not looking so good with the Bujhan and Pohang leaders. The second he brought his dad's business into the conversation, Seth just shut himself up, holding his head and groaning that way. Now he was stuck. So, asking for a compromise, Seth said that he will only agree for the guards if they agree to stay out of his sight. So his uncle finally agreed and he went back to his classroom with his head completely bandaged. Upon seeing his head bandaged like this, the one who was shocked the most was Sophie. But remembering the incident which he had caused the last night, beating up the club president's head into the table, she could not say anything and turned her gaze away. Victor, who was sleeping in the class, noticed Seth and looked up and stared at the bandaging at his head. He asked what the hell was he looking at. Giving a slight chuckle, he said, "Where the hell did he got beat up and shame on him?" Seth got absolutely furious at this comment and was growling the entire time. Trying to explain his injuries, he said that it was 14-1, so this much amount of injuries justified. But Victor kept on teasing Seth by saying that he was uttering bullshit. Now Seth was angry for a different set of reasons. The school went on as usual, but during one of the periods during the lunch break, the comm system started going off because somebody wanted to make some sort of announcement. The announcement was for Seth. The PEA system called him to the office because the principal wanted to talk with him about something. Both Sophie and Victor were confused as to what happened this time. Why was he called to the office once more? Getting up, Seth asked Victor that where was the principal's office. Trying to guess for a little while, Victor tried to advise him what could have been the problem. He asked whether there was any kind of problem with Jason. He explained that could have been a problem because although Jason's uncle is the principal of the school, his dad was actually the owner of it. And as he was going back, Victor told Seth to be wary of these people because they were powerful, they could do whatever they want. And thus, with an annoyed sigh as to what will happen now, he entered the principal's office where some of the teachers, the club president and the principal were sitting. First, he asked the identity of Seth to Seth. Was he Seth? He did not answer, but looking at his expression, it was pretty evident that he indeed is Seth. The principal pulled out some papers saying that since his transfer in the school, he has been causing non-stop trouble for everyone. But the president, who was standing at the side of the principal, was giving out a slight smirk, acting as if he had won, but in reality, he was the one hiding behind the tails of his parents' influence. The principal stated that first case of violence was when he came to the school where he beat up 3 kids. Then when he beat up Brock, an illegal, and watched over Duel. And then he finally beat up the entire goon gang hiding in the warehouse. And then final crime was to hit the council president. But over here, the council president was continuing to give out his smirk, absolutely sure that his win was in his ballpark, and there was no way he could lose. With a calm demeanor, the principal told him that henceforward, because of his action, he has been expelled from the high school. The teacher sitting in front of him just gave out his biggest sigh, worrying that how could things have gone wrong this way. But instead of worrying about that, Seth was instead smiling with a big grin, shocking the president who expected him to worry at this. Seth counter-asked the president, the principal saying that was he sure about what he was saying, that he had expelled Seth from the high school. Seth called out to his bodyguard to say something. He first asked his bodyguard whether he knew where he went to the school. The bodyguard answered affirmatively that he knew. With a creepy grin, he told his bodyguard to adjust the accounts and buy the entire school. Just at Seth's one call, the entire guard regime came to the school. All of the kids were sitting at the door murmuring about what the hell was happening here. It was the main guard uncle. He brought the cars to the school while holding some legal documents in his hand to negotiate the contacts with the school's authorities. Hearing the ruckus outside, the principal asked Seth that what did he do? Keeping his cheeky nature, he tried to act innocent, said, who the hell knows what he did? When a lot of people came into the room, the principal and the president shouted, who the hell are they? But without the answer, they went on to sit in front of the principal. But as somebody was continuously shouting, who were they? Someone knuckle-punched him in his neck to shut him up. It was the meek driver. He told president to stop talking if he wanted to live any longer. The main guard uncle pulled up the documents and threw it in front of the principal's chair, completely in anger but keeping his calm. The principal asked, how dare they bring such people into holy school grounds? The guard said to first read the documents, then they will talk. Not expecting what to see, the moment he pulled out the paper, just the first line shocked the hell out of him. It was a list of illegal activities which the head had involved the school with for the past 3 years. Now, completely losing his cool, he asked what the hell did he want from him, that he found out such deep information about him. Getting straight to the point, he said that he just wanted the rights to the school, and if he did that, all of them will quietly go away without bothering anyone. The principal tried to protest, seeing how dare they use the school as a transaction method for someone's evil deeds. But the guard uncle instantly choked him, cutting his sentence midway, as if he did not want him to even give a voice. Now annoyed, the main guard started to list out his evil deeds one by one, like using the school's lunch money to support his life with the side chick. The guard was perfectly straight in what he wanted to keep things easy, to hand over the documents of the school and to be civilized in this transaction, and nothing would get ugly. In the house, the main owner of the school asked principal what the hell happened that morning. The principal said he could not do anything as he had no power, and he had to sell the school to that guy. The owner slammed his hand on the table, asking how could he sell his own blood and sweat? Was he out of his mind or something? But the principal kept his head down, repeatedly asking for forgiveness for his mistake. Seeing who was the one who bought their school, he got reminded that the Sunshine Group of Corporation was just a pack of thugs acting as a legitimate company. Just then the owner's son, the student council president, came into the room asking what were they talking about. With anger, the father asked his son what exactly happened at the school. But just as his mistake was too grave, he had a really hard time starting from where he would start. But realizing that his father was the only one who could do anything at this point, he straight up told everything to him. From the time how he put a hit on Seth, and how he caught Seth, called his uncles, how they brought the school, everything. Realizing this is out of his son's territory, he called up the senator on the phone. According to the head of the senator, the secretary came. He told them that there might be a company called Sunshine Group of Corporations that they might need to have a look on. But over here at Sunshine's Group of Corporation, Seth was really surprised along with his guard that how fast they were able to acquire the building. The guard answered that this was pretty easy to do because they were evil people, guilty people. They took cuts of the students' lunch expenses, illegal employed practices, overcharging the school supplies, sexually harassing teachers, and embezzlement of school funds like those. Surprising Seth even more, he asked, how were they able to find out so many information at once? The guard answered that it was necessary because he goes to that school. So they already had this information at hand? The next question put him in a bind. He asked who was he going to choose as the next chairman of the school. After all, he bought the school, so he must be having someone in mind. Having to think about all the candidates, the interviews, the choosing, the checking, put him once more in a cold sweat. Over here, the guard thought that he must be having someone in his mind already. But Seth did not have any kind of plan. He just impulsively called his guard uncle on the spot to buy the school without any further thoughts. So just as before comes the next day at Seth's high school. Although he was the owner of the school now, he did not bother himself showing as one. He just went in as a normal student. But as he went and sat on his seat, Victor just kept looking at him without answering anything. Even after asking what he wanted, Victor just stayed quiet and kept on scratching his hair. Just by then, Sophie came into the scene watching both of them. She felt the need to talk about the incident. She went and meekly asked them that what happened in the office afterwards, because she could not find him after he left bloodily. Seth was somber. He asked how could she worry about someone like him whom she saw in such a negative light. Trying to negate any kind of personal feelings, she said that she worried about him because he was a classmate of hers and she was the class representative. Seth, knowing that she did not hate him, gave out a small grin, saying that everything was okay. She doesn't need to worry about anything. But just then, the council president barged into the room, shouting out his name, calling him a bastard and cussing him. Victor was apathetic as usual, kept his head down, while Sophie was shocked beyond belief. From the doorway, the council president shouted that no way in hell he would be scared of a pathetic thug like him. Without answering, he just started walking up to him silently. But before he could put another step in front of his foot, the president slammed the door shut and ran away with tails between his legs. Seth was confused. If the president did not want to confront about this, then what the hell was this show all about? Over here at the chairman's office, someone called the PE teacher inside. This someone was none other than the guard uncle who wanted to talk about something. On the table, there was a resume which had the photo of the PE teacher along with every achievement he had ever done. Upon coming in and talking with the guard, he asked how could he be help of them. The guard answered with a somber tone that, according to the wishes of the new owner of the school, he wanted the PE teacher to be the new chairman of the school. The school time period came to an end, and Seth began to leave the school. But the club president was not done now. As he called for even more goons standing in one of the hallways pointing towards the target who was Seth giving another hit on his head, President said that the only job they had was to bring Seth near him so that he can have a chat with him. Holding the wad of cash, they all of them agreed that this is a pretty small task for such a huge amount of money, and they were happy to oblige. They turned around to see who was this guy that the president was even asking of. But the moment they recognized him, every single one of the goons instantly lost their shit and started to cold sweat in the middle of the winter. Seeing these reactions of the goons, the president could not understand why were they acting like this and asked what the hell happened to them. Getting angry, all the goons threw the wad of cash back to the president, saying, was he trying to get someone killed? This amount of money absolutely does not equate to someone's life. Saying that he ran away along with his friends, leaving the president astonished and aghast. Looking at him get into his car, he wanted just who the heck was this guy with so much amount of money? And just as he left, there were about 10 cars line by line going after one of them. This made the president really scared about the identity of Seth. After a lot of days, Seth went back to his mother's academy cafe. Making a hot chocolate for her son, she had a warm smile, happy that he was having fun at his school. Seth had that warm smile as well, because he knew he was home. But thinking for a little while, he straight up asked the question, why did not his mother live with his father for the entire time? She was silent as she had no answer to see. Seeing his mother like this, he became considerate, saying that if she did not wanted to say it, she should not feel forced. Feeling a little bit relieved, she said that she will of course tell him about it all at a later date. Seth was happy that he was going to get the answers he was looking for. So, bidding his mother goodbye, he walked out of the cafe, but her mother kept on carrying that depressed look. Looking at his question, he instantly got reminded of the flashback to that day. That day when her husband, Seth's father, told her that they should be separated for a little while. The mom shouted, saying that she will stay with him, but that was for the best as he could not risk putting his son's life in danger as well. Seeing that there was no way out of this, she became silent with a really sad and somber expression. She hugged her son. Her child was so little back then, just a little baby in her arms, sucking on his thumbs. Just as Seth left the cafe, two guys from the opposition fighting groups came into the cafe. The first guy with a missing eye greeted the lady, giving her a warm welcome, saying that it has been a little while since they have met. But the mother knew that this was not any sort of ordinary meeting. Rather, she was specifically being targeted right now and she was in danger. On the other side of the city, Seth and the rest of his company were going to some place in the line of black luxury cars. He was sitting in the one in the very middle along with his guard uncle with four of the vehicles along his side. The guard uncle said that he made the PE teacher the chairman of the school as per his instructions. Seth did not even bat an eye. He just silently said thanks to his guard uncle for acting at such a short notice. The guard uncle pulled out an account note calculating all of the billings and all, concluding the fact that since the school had lost its name as the athlete's school, it has been going into debt. Seth said that they might use their own money. The guard uncle said that they can invest $3 million more into the school. But the problem is they needed to bring back its athlete school predisposition once more. Seth was kind of shocked and asked, that could something like this be even done because of the actions of Brock? Every single sponsors had left the school. The uncle cheekily said that in the world of media, attention is money and money is power. So if they can have some amazing students which can catch the media's attention, they can bring back the school to its previous glory. While discussing with his uncle about the rest of the politics and money, he reached his destination, the school. At school, everything was just as usual. Everybody was studying in their classes. Some of them were sleeping. The old teachers were trembling while teaching. Just as usual. But just as Seth was sleeping in the class similar to Victor, his phone rang with someone named Chief calling him. With a sleepy voice, Seth picked up asking who was talking with him. Super annoyed, the caller shouted that just how arrogant someone could be to forget they're such immediate company competitors. Thinking for a little bit, he got reminded that this belongs to that one-eyed competitor and realized who was talking. But just as the guy was about to tell him of his mother, before he could utter anything else, he just cut the call, saying that he was in the middle of the class, cannot talk. But he was completely lying because the moment he dropped the phone, he instantly went back to sleep. But he was not going to let him go like this. So the caller called him once again. And now annoyed by repeated calls, Seth just switched his phone completely off, leaving all his worries to his later date. But on the other side of the city where the competitor was trying to contact Seth, the automatic response system told that the phone was switched off and it could not be reached. Holding his phone, he gritted his teeth. Just how annoying a brat could get. When he had someone so important to Seth at his mercy in front of him, seeing that normal form of communication was not going to get him anywhere, he turned behind to one of the guards standing behind him. He turned around, ordering them to go get him from his school. He started to grit his teeth, giving out a creepy green saying that how come a little kid greenhorn could compete anywhere near someone great as him? He will instantly kill him. But during the same time, Seth was just sleeping in his class dreaming about stupid things. So that school got over and Seth left his classes in order to go back to his home. But just then a big white minivan came and slammed brakes right in front of him. Out of the minivan, two super muscular guys pulled up in front of him. These were the same goons who were sent to retrieve Seth from the orders of the business competitor. Seth asked, "Who are you and what did they want from him?" Without answering anything out of the ordinary with a respectful tone, one of the guys asked him to please accompany them to the place that they are trying to take him. But the moment they were trying to take Seth to somewhere that they want, a certain familiar person stopped both of them, asking for the help they were thinking of doing. Both of the guys knew this person and knew him someone as to be respected, so they got shocked in his place upon seeing him. This was the meek driver. Although not so meek now, he was asking who the hell they were ordering. The boss of the group around. Turning his head around, wanting to clear the point that they wanted to convey, he pulled out his phone trying to show him something. Snatching the phone out of his hand, the moment he saw the thing that they wanted to show him, absolutely light went out of his eyes and he became breached with anger. It was a video of his mother being held captive somewhere as a prisoner to lure Seth into somewhere. Taking the phone back, they said that now that they have some sort of advantage over him, they asked him to quietly follow him to the place or else nothing good will come out of this. But at this point, Seth was in no way, shape, or form able to converse even a single sentence. He was absolutely maddened with rage. Before the guy could even say anything, Seth gave the strongest neck chop he could ever give, knocking the hell out of him. For the second guy, in order to distract him, he threw the phone at his temple, distracting him so that he could do something else in the moment. He did not play around like the earlier fights he had. He took a straight punch directly at the second guy's face. Force of the punch was so strong that it literally broke the facial structure of the second guy, caving his face into itself. Taking on the second guy, he slammed his face into the ground, breaking his entire head. The things that were broken were not only his face, skull, nose, but rather 2 of his teeth was a broke-out. Getting stuck into Seth's fist, he brought his face near him, asking where she was and if he didn't say within few moments of him asking. Then there was nothing there that was stopping him from killing him. Now in his area of car, speeding to the place where his mother was hurt, he called out to his guard uncle telling him about everything. He told him to not to worry about anything much and they will find her safe and sound. He shouted to the guard uncle saying that how can he not worry? This was his mom they were talking about. He is going to absolutely kill them all by life. The guard uncle shouted to him saying that this is exactly what they wanted to make him lose his mind. He told him to calm down and they are not going to hurt her in any way. Even though he knew that this was a trap that he was getting into, he could not help himself. Over at the place where his mother was being held, he kept on calling Seth, shouting at her why the hell was he not picking up. Controlling himself, he told her that there was nothing to worry about. He did not have any kind of grudge against her, but he knew that such a little kid should not be the one to run the family. Not afraid, she quietly said that it did not matter anyway because her son will be able to handle the family company far better than he ever could. He was absolutely shocked on hearing this kind of reply from her whom he thought was going to be quiet and submissive. Saying that she got up from his stool showing that she was not as weak of a woman. She stood completely tall as she towered over the figures of the ones who had captured her. Her eyes were not filled with fear, sadness, they were filled with disgust. Look of disgust and judgment that she was giving to this guy. All cars were screaming on the roads trying to reach to the place of her capture as fast as possible. The most anxious among them was Seth. He was barely able to control himself and only stayed quiet because of his guard uncle's advice. After reaching a few wrong places, they finally reached the construction site from where those guys called him. Getting off the car, he got ready to fight, asking guard uncle that what did he knew about mother that made him so sure that she was going to absolutely be fine. But he did not answer. He stayed quiet and looked at the direction where sounds were coming in from the building. But Seth, after hearing that he did not stood still, he jumped and started sprinting towards the direction of the fighter. After struggling his way through narrow corridors and a lot of cluttered stairs, he was finally able to reach the room where his mother was slamming the door open. But the scene that he saw unfolded in front of his eyes absolutely left him speechless. There his mother was standing strong among a lot of knocked out bodies lying around her. For his final victim, she held the collar of the guy who ordered her hit in the first place, screaming for mercy, requesting her to let him go. Seth now calming down for a bit. What the hell happened over here? Who did all of this? Then shouted out if she was okay. But as realization began to hit, what had happened here? Cold sweat began to flow down his face. His pupils got constricted as he asked his mom, who was she? Unfortunately, this is the side of his mom that she never wanted her son to see. She looked at him and turned her gaze away as if she was ashamed of something. Just then the guard uncle came up walking through the door, bowing down to his mother, asking for forgiveness for letting this happen. Leaving the collar, she said that she was going to leave from here, letting everything on him to handle from now on. The moment she left his collar, he instantly crawled back, hiding his face, begging for mercy, shouting for someone to save him. Seth was completely stunned by shock. He could not believe his eyes. The thing he saw, he just quietly stood still. As she went past Seth, she called out to him saying that they should go for now as the opening time of cafe was coming soon, and the customers might be waiting for her. Seth looked around at the person whom he used to consider his mother. Being able to knock out so many people at once and traumatize a person till the point he started to beg for mercy. Although both of them reached the cafe, both of them were quiet without uttering a single word. The mother was ashamed for her action, whereas Seth took time to process what he just saw. Not being able to think anymore, he just asked her what was the meaning of this. How could she be able to fight so well? She said that it was her secret. She is not comfortable sharing it now, but she will once the times comes. so she wanted him to be patient. He respected her request for distance, but even then, he told that it did not make any sense at all. It was not physically possible. She answered him that although he might have seen a different side of her today, she was still his mother. Although Seth did not push any further, but he was absolutely not satisfied by the answer he got from her. Outside the cafe, the meek driver was smoking a cigarette, inhaling this smoke. But the moment the main guard bodyguard uncle came, the meek driver threw away his cigarette, acting completely normal. He turned his attention around to Seth, who was sitting along with his mother having a conversation. Just as he was thinking about them, he got reminded of the time of Seth's childhood. When he was still a little infant wobbling on his toes trying to crawl, his mom and dad were really supportive of his progression and supported him by motivating him at every single spot. But there were times when mother showed him something that should not be showed to a little kid. She at times even hurt him in the process when she accidentally hit a yo-yo directly at his head, shocking the hell out of the dad. When being hurt from the hard yo-yo being hit at his head, he started crying, but his mother picked him up and shouted him to get quiet. Holding back his sniffs, he calmed himself, stopping himself from crying. In order to make sure if he learned his lesson, she brought out you once more, spinning it around him. And this time, fortunately, he was able to dodge the yo-yo, showing that he had learned from his previous experience. Wanting to congratulate him on his progress, she held him really close to her heart, giving him a lot of cuddles. While the dad was losing his mind over how she trained him like a dog, there was someone who was looking at this from behind. It was a young bodyguard uncle who was really young looking at that time and did not have that big scar on his face. After collecting himself back from the little train down the memory lane, he called out to the meek driver to tell him about the information he got about this attack. He said that the Japanese infiltrated Yakuza were behind the rebellion which caused all of this drama from Busan. He changed his face because he got reminded of some unpleasant memories he had with them previously. Now, telling him about them, the guard uncle asked the meek driver to take care of Seth. The driver bowed down as low as he could go, saying that he was going to do his absolute best. But seeing the severity that was occurring around these locations, the guard uncle advised the meek driver that he should have a weapon at hand, hide it from the police because it was illegal. Really happy by the fact that he was not going to be limited by just hand-to-hand combat anymore, he gave out a big smile, shouting, "Thank you, sir, for allowing him to do that." Now changing his tactic to protect Seth from inside, he said that just having someone from outside the school was not enough. They needed someone that they can infiltrate to protect Seth from inside. He said need for such big measures was getting more disparate because the other parties were getting desperate as well, and they needed closer bodyguards. So he ordered the driver to find 2 fighters who could pass as transfer students into the school. Now over at Sophia's place, she was having dinner at her home with her father. Although she was trying to eat, but her mind was not in the food, rather she was absent-minded, thinking about something deeply. Her dad noticed this behavior, that her daughter was not her usual self and something was wrong with her. So, showing his concern, he asked her if something was bothering her, and he was there to listen if she wanted to share anything. Not wanting to include her father into this conversation, she said everything was fine, and nothing was there to worry about. But her dad was not convinced by the way she was acting, and he knew there was something wrong. To escape the situation, she kept on jumping on her food like a chipmunk, trying to complete her meal as fast as possible. Coming out to the balcony, her father dialed someone whom he wanted to talk about this situation. That person was the school council president. The dad called him asking what happened in the school in the past few days, asking for a detailed report. And like a snitch, he went on to paint Seth in a bad light, saying that there was a very bad student who came to the school causing trouble for everyone all around. Now, knowing that there was some culprit behind her daughter's actions, he got super angry, asking the council president to tell him every detail from the very start. Now, after the time was over for the cafe, Seth's mom closed it along with the guard uncle standing beside her. By closing the door, she asked if Seth had reached home safely. The guard uncle assured him that there was nothing to worry about. He had reached home safely, and there were some bodyguards that were surrounding for his protection. Furthermore, he said sorry for his lack of any action regarding the father's situation. She said it was fine, and he offered to take her back to her home. With a smile, the mother said that there was no need for him to do that because she was away from Seth in the first place because she did not want him to get into any trouble. Back in his room, Seth tried his best to sleep, but the incidents of the day earlier could not let him sleep at all. He was twisting and tossing around. He woke up in cold sweat, shouting to the air, just what the hell did he witness today? What the hell happened? Now, back at Yakuza's safe house. The competitors were talking about themselves. With the family competitor bowing at the legs of the chief, He asked for forgiveness as he said that he failed taking over the business. He clicked his tongue saying that this is why Koreans are also untrustworthy. Cannot even give them a normal task. Now that they had failed taking over the company, the guy asked what should be their next course of action, giving out a big puff of smoke from his pipe. He said that they should use everything they have got. Now that situation has come to this. The boss ordered him to send Akira. Now, at the school, since gym teacher had changed from just gym teacher to the chairman of the school, he changed his get-off from his casual tracksuit and coat suit and pants, which was really awkward for him to wear around. Looking at the big mountains of paper that he has to deal with, he told himself just a day ago he was the gym teacher, now the chairman of the school. Just what the world had come to. Just a moment later, after he sat on his table, the phone started to ring. It was the PA phone that his assistant directed towards him. This was the call from the bodyguard uncle. He introduced himself as the Sunshine Corporation. They told him that there was going to be a transfer student at the school. They requested him to be put in the same class as Seth. Without explaining anything, the chairman was left shocked as to what was happening. He tried to contact it, but the call was cut midway. Just then a knock was heard from the door. Someone was trying to get him. After such a call, getting such a knock, the chairman got startled. It was Brock. He was the one who came to the school. The chairman asked that why did Brock come to the school? He never came to the school, and this was such a rare sight for someone like him. He had come to the school to first congratulate his gym teacher on becoming the chairman, but he also came holding a favor that he wanted to ask from him. Holding his somber expression, he asked the chairman that he wanted to complete his education, so he requested to be granted to the school again so that he can at least graduate. The chairman was completely shocked at Brock's such a sincere show of sincerity. So the headmaster, chairman, took Brock to the classroom to introduce him to the rest of the class to tell them that he will continue his rest of the term in the school. But the moment she called Brock out to the class to meet everyone, literally living daylights ran away from the students' faces. So with an arm cast on his left hand, he introduced himself as Brock Chang. Seth and Victor were surprised, amused. The rest of the kids who knew him grew impatient, and others just marveled at his physique. Then the teacher announced that they in fact don't have only one transfer student but two, and called the second student into the class to introduce him. This second guy introduced himself as Joom Kim. He had a really beautiful face and handsome demeanor, becoming an instant boy crush among the rest of the girls in the class. But the boys didn't share the same demeanor as the girls, instantly acknowledging him as a rival. All of them instantly turned him into an enemy. But other than the students, the teacher over here was correcting her glasses in disbelief. That are these big old-looking dudes are really high school kids or not. But instantly correcting herself, she pointed them to the back of the class, telling them to occupy the two seats in the back. So going to his seat, he went face-to-face for a moment with Seth, who instead of giving any kind of taunts, just gave a big grin, welcoming him back. But this was not the end of the list of the kids who were going to study in Seth's class from now on, as another luxury-looking car got parked in the front of the school. Inside it, their bodyguard told her that they had reached their destination, the school that she was going to study at. She started to speak in Japanese, asking if this was the school where Seth went to study, and when affirmed by the bodyguard, she gave a grin, telling that she couldn't wait to meet his target. So in the school, everyone was in a complete mess right now, whoever was in Seth's class. Because earlier they had to deal with the shenanigans of Seth and Victor, but now they also have to deal with two most troublesome guys, one Brock, who was the most powerful fighter in the school, and Joon Kim, so handsome that all the girls were swooning over him. Looking at the class, the teacher asked whether the kids were planning on going to the graduation trip that was happening the next day. But the class was completely silent, not agreeing or not disagreeing with the teacher's question. So she turned her attention to the new guys who were sitting at the back, asking them whether they were planning on going to the graduation trip. First, June affirmed, then followed by Brock. But Victor and Seth did not answer anything as they were sleeping in the class and did not even hear what was going on. The teacher thanked them for participating in the school functions and said that she was going to meet them tomorrow at the venue. But just as the teacher left, both of them woke up from the sleep, noticing June and Brock sitting at the corner of the room. Brock got off from his seat to greet both of them. Although the greeting was absolutely not amicable at first, since they shared glances of the being stuck in a stalemate, Victor, wanting to give Seth some privacy, said that he was going to let two of them catch up about everything while he goes on his way. But as he was picking up his bags to go out of the class, Brock stopped him. Now, both of them super annoyed. Victor asked him what the hell was the matter with him now. June, seeing all of this play out, and gave out a small smirk. So after the school was over, Brock called out to Victor at the back of the alleyway to talk with him about something. Without playing around the bush, Victor got to the point straight. Brock was there only to fight and complete his revenge. Brock was impressed and relieved because now half of his work was already done, and he didn't need to explain why he came back to the school. But Victor got really offended because he thought now that he got beaten up by Seth, he thinks that Victor will be an easy target of some sorts, and thought that Brock wanted him to be his practice round. But Brock remained silent. He didn't answer any of Victor's claims and accusations. He didn't even try to defend or fight back. He just stayed back. But inside his mind, he was thinking something else. He was constantly repeating his previous match that he had with Victor and was thinking of countermeasures against his own style. Victor dropped his bag and got into formation, taunting to Brock to come at him and fight him. But Brock didn't give in to his taunts and told that he will fight him for sure, but not over here, in the back alley of the school, but rather in front of everyone, legally, with teachers present in the gym. With proper protection kit like the gloves and helmets, to make sure that no one gets severely hurt. Victor couldn't understand that what was Brock was trying to get at. Why was he so civil all of a sudden? With a somber expression, Brock told that after fight with Seth, he realized that he may have had a lot of brute strength, but he lacked fighting stance and techniques, which he wanted to learn from Victor. Something as deep and thoughtful coming out of someone like Brock was literally unheard of. Hearing it, Victor literally went into a tiny surprise-induced shock. So after the school ended, Seth went on to his own car, but near the gate, Sophie was waiting for him to come out. But after she saw him, she didn't utter a single word and just started to follow him silently. But a moment later, Seth was able to sense her presence and looked behind to see who it actually was. Standing in his place, Seth turned around to Sophie, asking if she needed something from him, and asked why was she following him. But she went silent upon being asked such a question, and could only make a noise. But after fidgeting for a little while, she mustered up the courage to ask him if he had something on his schedule on this coming Saturday, and whether if he was free or not. Then, not even trying to add any suspense, she pulled out 2 movie tickets, telling that she had bought it because she wanted the 2 of them to go and watch the movie. With a very big smile, Seth replied that he would, of course, join her, and he was also really happy that she thought of inviting him out. Holding out the tickets near her face, realizing that her invitation was a success, she gave out a big sigh of relief that nothing bad had happened. Seth was not an idiot. He knew what Sophie was trying to do, so he knew that he had to do something for her as well. So he asked her out on the spot, asking if she had any free time on that day, because he wanted to invite her out to eat snacks with her as well. Sophie, happy about this amount of progress and also the advancement from Seth, she gave a very wide, radiant smile, saying, yeah, she would love to go with him because she was feeling hungry. Seth told that she won't regret, because he knew a really tasty place. So now Seth and Sophie, feeling more closer than ever, kept on continuing, their small talks mixed with a lot of smiles and small giggles. But then at the end of the road near Seth's car, a guy knocks on the window to call on the driver who was sleeping inside the car. The driver asked what did the man wanted and warned that he might get angry if he found out about them. The person who answered was June. He said that there was nothing to worry about because his boss, Seth, had gone to date with Sophie and he will be busy for a little while. The driver could not understand what June was talking about and just looked a little bit confused. Then, bowing to the driver's level, June asked if the driver had some smokes with him. The driver got angry that he might get caught, but June said that there was no one around and acting like student was suffocating. But the driver insisted that he is in no way going to give June a cigarette when he was still in his school uniform. June just put his head on the windsill and gave out a sigh of annoyance. Then, as if to mock him further, the driver pulled out a cigarette for his own and started to smoke it inside the car. June got annoyed and angry and shouted out at how mean he was. But changing the topic to a further serious note, the driver asked June that how was the school so far and if he got in without any troubles. June gave a small shrug, saying he was not going to face any kind of problems. The class students are just little kids. He is going to be fine. And pulling out a small baton from under his sleeve. He gave a slight creepy smile, saying that nothing is going to happen. But if it does, then he is going to be prepared. The next scene starts from the Rotary Boxing Gym, which is frequented by students from Seth's school. Inside the gym at this hour, 2 guys were fighting a boxing match. These 2 guys were Victor and Brock. Both of them were fighting the promised boxing match from while ago, and Victor was going on absolute offense, whereas Brock was stuck on his defense. Seeing Brock hold both of his arms in front of his face, Victor found an opening on the side laterals of him. So he went and gave a strong jab on his left side laterals, Having such a strong blow coming from his side instantly broke Brock's complete concentration and his stance. And now that his concentration and stance was broken, Victor took that as an opportunity and gave a strong jab directly at Brock's face. Taking such a strong blow directly to his face, Brock staggered on his stance and began to slump down. Stopping for a little while, Victor stopped to ask Brock if he was okay to continue, or did he need some break or any kind of medications. But taking a second, Brock opened up his eyes and told Victor that is that all he could much tear up. Is this all that he had which caused him to be so much proud of his boxing skills? But unfortunately, considering how hothead Victor was, he could not see this taunt and unfortunately was swept up in it and got super angry. Showering Brock in a barrage of punches, Victor shouted that he had some kind of nerve saying this to someone while he himself was someone who could not even throw up proper punch. Brock, now successful in insulating Victor, began to take on the punches one by one without fighting back or without saying anything, charging up a last strongest punch. Victor said that if he wanted to learn boxing so much, he should first start by punching first punch. But something weird happened. The punch did not connect to anything. It just went straight through air without hitting any destination. It was Brock's doing. This time, instead of defending every single punches, he moved his head aside to let the punch flow through his head, dodging it. And now that Victor was caught in a stalemate, Brock started charging up his left punch, as he was planning to go offensive for the first time since the match started. Charging up his punch completely, he launched his head directly targeted at Victor's face. But thanks to Victor's ungodly level of reflexes, he was barely able to remove his head in time, dodging the punch. The dodge was so strong that he jumped behind a few steps in order to catch his breath and gain a tiny amount of stamina. But unfortunately, he was caught in the ring, trapped inside a corner. But Brock was not about to let go of Victor easily this fast. So he also ran to the corner where Victor was standing and charged up his punch to attack him once more. But learning about his Brutus force, Victor started to get worried that if he misses even a single dodge and even a single punch is connected to him, he is going to end up in hospital the next moment. Now, this time, Brock taunted to Victor once more, saying that who was the guy who was putting on so much airs a moment ago? Why was he hesitating to fight? Once more, Victor was caught by the taunt, and he went on face-to-face to fight Brock. On the other side of the town, in a cinema hall, a bustling movie hall was watching a fantasy film filled with swords and other magical elements. The ones who were watching this movie were Sophie and Seth. The movie was proving to be way too scary for Sophie, as she was scared in her seat, slumped on her shoulders, trying her best to not look at the screen. But realizing her plea, Seth slid his hand in order to hold hers to give her some support. But the moment Sophie realized that she was holding hands with Seth, like a cat, she instantly jumped back in her seat, completely forgetting about what she was watching on the movie. So a bit of time later, the movie ended and the credits rolled. Every single one was discussing about how good the movie was or any criticisms about the movie. But Sophie and Seth were quietly walking through the exit area without discussing anything. Finally breaking the ice, Seth asked Sophie that did she like the movie, to which she agreed and asked vice versa. After talking for a little while, Sophie waves her hand, saying that she was thankful for him to come watch the movie with her, and now she was planning on going back home. Seth asked that she wanted something to eat. Sophie could not understand what he was leading on. So Seth made a clarification, saying that normally in dates and stuff, people usually eat dinner together after watching a movie. That's why he was offering her the option. Hearing the word date, her face instantly went red as she could not suggest anything and she was just locked in time. Seeing her indecisiveness, Seth takes the lead and grabs her hand and says her that he knows the absolute perfect place which she will like a lot, and that they should go there. The place that Seth was referring to was his own company, Sunshine Corporation's restaurant. Inside it was a really high-class restaurant in which every single one was in their best clothes, while lavish entertainment and designs surrounded them. Seeing so much amount of richness and high glass, it made Sophie a little bit squirmy as she looked around to see if she looked out of place or not. Not able to contain her worry, she went to Seth to tell him that she might not be able to afford the place because it looked really expensive. Seth made a smiling face, saying to her to not worry about the money here and she just eat as she feels like. Just as they were talking, a butler came to the table, bowing down to Seth, showing respect. And with him, he brought another table filled with the cutlery that was needed for the dinner. Having received such an amazing service, Sophie thanked the butler for helping them. Still worrying, she kept on nagging Seth, saying that she might not be able to pay, but Seth said once more that she did not need to worry about the money as he was going to pay for everything. Sophie got surprised for a little bit, thinking how the hell was something as expensive as this free? Seth explained that this big company was owned by their own company, so as an offer he was allowed to eat for free. Hearing his story, Sophie gave a really small smirk, to which Seth thought that she thinks he was lying and he is not actually that much rich that he was showing off as. Seeing her reaction, Seth asked her that did she not believe that he actually was that much rich? But worried about being misunderstood, Sophie started to flare her arms in the air, saying that this was not what he meant. She was smirking for completely else. She said that she was working because she got jealous when he said that he was rich. Slightly smiling and realized that the things are moving in the desired direction. Seth gave out a big smile, saying that since their current date went such nicely, they should plan on doing the next one. Hearing this, Sophie's face instantly lit up at the mention of a second date and got really happy that her relationship with Seth was moving so smoothly ahead. On another day, Seth and his entire car group were going on the highway headed towards somewhere. He said that he is going to send some of his people to the Jeju Island because there was some sort of trouble brewing over there that he needs to take care of. And the trouble was not over just there, because even the Japan's gang seemed to be up to doing something. But Seth assured them that this was just a high school trip. He did not need that much level of security and he was going to be safe. While reaching his destination, he got off the car saying that he was going to be okay. He was not so weak and he should have some faith in him. So in order to show that he was angry, Seth just stomped out of the car and slammed the door behind him. After thinking for a little while, the bodyguard towards the driver, calling him out, to which the driver answered. But after getting the memo, he had only one thing that he needed to say. He wanted a driver to follow Seth on this trip. But the driver could not understand because he thought that the problem had already been assigned to someone else, and he did not know that he was the one who was supposed to do it. The driver gave out a small chuckle, saying that finally he was going to go to Jeju, but on company funds, not his. So the plane finally landed, and all of them reached the Jeju Island while all of them screamed in excitement at this student trip. But the teacher kept up creeping behind the guy who was making all of the students shout, so slowly increasing in anger and raising up her punch. She slammed his head down to her knee level, completely shutting him and his entire group off. She then turns towards the rest of the students, shouting that are the little kids shouting like this on a field trip, pointing to a bus that was right behind her. She told everybody to get on it, and they will start on their way. So slowly, without making any kind of fuss, everybody walked into the bus line by line in a single line. Finally, doing a head count of all the kids to check whether they had got on the bus or not, she turned towards the driver to tell him that it was okay now and they could go for the trip. The first place that the bus went and stopped was the Jeju Tourism Hotel. It was a gigantic building that absolutely made the giant buses look like ants. After everybody got off the bus, the teacher did another head count to make sure that everybody came out and nobody was left inside. Reading out of the scripts, she said that their class was on the 8th floor, starting from room number 802. There will be names already stuck on the doors, so they needed to find their own rooms. The entire 8th floor started to get completely chaotic, with everybody running around trying to find where their own room was. While all of them trying to walk around, Seth finally found his name on one of the stuck papers on the door. It was a one single room in which Seth, Victor, and Brock, all three, had to live together for the entirety of the vacation. Seth commented on what amazing team this was. Brock kept quiet and Victor just gave angry growl. June, walking for a little while, said that his room was right next to them, not listening to anybody's talk anymore. Brock just opened the door and went on by himself. The inside of the room was really beautiful. It had pretty interiors along with a beautiful carpet, and every single item was neatly placed. Without thinking much, Seth just said that he was planning on taking the middle bed, whereas Victor took the left side bed and Brock took the right side bed. While Brock was completely fine with his decision, Victor got angry, saying that how come he was planning on taking the biggest bed for himself. So the fight started once more in between Victor and Brock, fighting on who takes the biggest bird, while Seth was quietly sitting in between them, just flaring his head about the problems that are about to come. The next destination for the field trip was Jusong-jeoli. After reaching the location, the teacher said that there are going to be multiple schools and multiple buses for different institutions, so they had to take care to come back to their own bus only and not get on any other bus. And they had to return sharply by 3 p.m., not a second after that. But Seth did not care about it at all. He did not hear the teacher what she said, and he was just sleeping on the bus. But just then he was awoken by someone calling him to wake up. It was Sophie. She asked him to wake up. She asked him whether he wanted to go together with her to spend some time since they came on this field trip and all. With a very big bright smile, he agreed that they should go together and enjoy the time while they still can. Sophie also giggled together with him, happy that they are going to spend time together. Whereas Victor was just chilling under a tree, not caring about anything else and just waiting for the time to pass. But just then his attention was broken by some guys grouping together and walking towards him while he was still laying on the ground. But these guys had nothing to do with Victor. They just went on their way, but they were chatting with each other loudly. Disturbed by the sound of their talking, he cursed out loud, calling them Chinese, and all Chinese sound the same. Over there, Brock was walking alone among the guys without talking to anybody, just minding his own business. And Sophie were sitting across one of the trees trying to smoke while somebody was approaching him. It was a driver. He called out to him, with a big smile, that both of them wanted to talk to each other. So both of them shared a cigarette and kept on chatting about how this new place looked. Seth was happily spending his time with Sophie, continuing his date, walking through place and place, laughing and chatting with each others. But just then, both of them were encountered by the same group of guys who came from China, stopping them in the tracks trying to say them something, making creepy faces. They talked to each other, saying that Korean girls are really cute, inviting and into play with them a little bit. Even though she could not understand what they were saying, but the message came straight across and she was creeped the hell out of it. They kept on saying that she should hang with those muscular guys instead of staying around this skinny guy. But instead of getting angry, he completely ignored them by saying that he could not even understand what they were saying. To not let Seth intervene, Sophie steps in between both of them, which was kind of a surprise for everyone. And to even more of a surprise to Seth, she started to speak really fluent Chinese, asking the guy, what did they want with them? The rest of the Chinese guy made a surprised sound, but happy surprise knowing that she could at least understand the language. Sophie continued saying that if they came to Korea on a visit from China, they should not do any actions that ruins the reputation of Chinese people in front of the world. But they did not give her word even a single damn. They just started speaking gibberish, saying stuff like how amazing that she knew the language and repeatedly calling her towards them to play around. Realizing that there was no hope with these guys, she did not fight anymore, and she just turned around looking at Seth. Holding a sad face, she told him that it was okay. They should go away from here, as strange hair would only cause problems. But Seth did not try to make her more uncomfortable and just agreed with her to go away from that place. Seeing that the guy and the girl started to walk away, the Chinese guy began laughing loudly, making fun of them, showing fingers to Seth. Although he could not understand what they were saying, but the way they were saying relayed the message across pretty clearly, and he knew that he needed to take care of these guys somehow. After a little while, both of them walked together and reached a small bench that was in the middle of the park. Trying to change the topic to a less serious tone, he asked her that where did she learn to speak Chinese and how did she speak so well? Sophie, giving a smile which did not reach her eyes, said that when she was little she was in China for a few years because of her dad, due to which she kept on studying and she didn't forget till now. Seth congratulated her that she was so awesome for being a bilingual. Sophie chuckled a little bit in embarrassment, but he knew that they had to approach the topic, so he straight up asked that, what did those guys say to her back there? Sophie knew that if she said the truth it was going to become a bloodbath, so she told him that it was nothing important and they were just messing around. So, leaving her to sit in the chair for a little bit, he asked for a small amount of time to go to the bathroom. And with a cheeky smile, he said that he will be right back before she even knew it. So, just as expected, he straight away walked till the bridge where he met those Chinese guys. Without any hesitation, he straight up called those guys, but the way he looked at them, it was horrifying. Seth carried such a horrifying expression while calling them, even some of the Chinese boys got scared. But he did not even give them a moment to breathe as he jumped off from the top step, charging a punch directly at the front guys. Over here, Sophie pointedly sat on the bench waiting for when Seth would come back from his toilet break. But walking for a little while, Seth joined Sophie. He gave the excuse that the bathroom was a little bit too far. That's why it took him so much time. Sophie was like, it's okay. What should we do next? Pointing towards another place, Seth said that the view over there looked really great. They should try to take some pictures over there, to which Sophie readily agreed. A second later, both of them continued their happy chit-chat walking towards the beautiful view area. But a minute later, another guy, most likely a leader, came to the bridge where his group was standing a minute ago, confused as to what happened. Every single guy from the Chinese group was knocked out and fell over the bridge unconscious. He slapped one of the guys, waking them up to ask what the hell happened to put all of them in this state of mind. The guy woke up completely battered, saying that it was a Korean guy who beat him up like this. Hearing that he got beaten up by a Korean guy, He got really angry and said he should be ashamed from getting beaten up by such weak people. He shouted and told the rest of his guys to go look for that Korean guy who did all of this to his boys. He ordered the rest of his boys that they were going to find this Korean guy and beat him up, showing who was the one on top. But these Chinese guys were absolutely ruthless. They did not spare even a single guy. The first two Korean guys that they just saw, they kicked their stomachs saying that they hit their boys. The other one said that these guys were way too spineless, they could not have been them, and told others to look for the other guys. Some of the guys reached another guy sleeping on the floor. This was none other than Victor. He was completely asleep by this point while the Chinese guy reached him. So one by one they surrounded him, planning on beating him up. The first guy kicked him in the body, trying to wake him up. Annoyed, he asked the guys what the hell was wrong with them. Looking for a few moments, they realized that this was not the guy they were searching for. But Victor was not going to let them go after being disrespected in this way. The Chinese guy got angry at him, trying to glare him down, asking who the hell he think he was. But instead of getting scared, Victor instead got happy. Happy at the expectation that he was going to get a fight here. The Chinese guy kept on blabbering his mouth, trying to control Victor, asking him to do stuff. But Victor was not listening anymore. The moment he shouted, a punch came flying right at his face. The punch was so strong that it knocked him down in just a single hit. After knocking him down, he took the time to figure out that what the hell was he even saying? Because up till now, they were talking in different languages, Korean and Chinese. The next group of Chinese students then reached Brock, who was just sitting quietly at the edge of a small cliff, looking at the scenery below without bothering anyone. The leader of those Chinese guy asked Brock whether he was the one who beat his guys up. Looking at Brock's physique, the guy says to his pals that he might be the one who hit them because he looks really strong at a glance. So without even hearing a single word from him, the leader of the Chinese guy started running towards him, loading a punch to attack at once. But his punch did not connect anywhere, as it was intercepted midway by another palm, stopping its force. It was Brock. His battle reflexes were so insane that he did not even need to look at the punch to know where to dodge. By just using his instincts, he was able to stop the punch by holding it. Just the sheer strength and skill to hold that punch told everything to the Chinese guy about this person, and he instantly started to shake, fearing that he might have angered the wrong person. With a monotonous voice, he told the Chinese guys a small thank you. Thank you for making history a little bit more enjoyable, as it was getting weird, too calm and boring. But since there was a language barrier in between the two, neither of them could understand what the other party was saying. But the Chinese guy thought that this was an opening and charged off his another punch to attack the team. But for Brock, he did not even need to move his body in order to avoid the attack. He just pulled his arm down, which broke the impact and changed the trajectory of the punch, thus missing the mark. Using the force of the punch as a momentum, he was able to propel himself sideways to reach the Chinese guy's back. Going behind the Chinese guy, Brock then wrapped his arms around him, thus choke-locking him in this space. The Chinese guy tried to free himself from the chokehold, but within few moments he felt as if his entire body was becoming weightless. This was due to Brock as well. He was actually lifting the entire guy off his feet to perform a German suplex on him. Thus, picking up the Chinese guy by his entire body, he was able to perform a German suplex, directly bashing the guy's head onto the concrete below. The rest of the Chinese guys just looked in shock and horror as their leader was losing this match so one-sided. So after defeating the first guy, Brock stood up from his position, looking towards the rest of the members, saying that he was not yet satisfied. He needed to fight more, calling on all of them. After all those bits and pieces, the time finally rolled out, and it was 3 p.m. All of the students were coming back from their expeditions to go back to the buses. The teacher was doing a head count of each and every student that was getting inside, making absolutely sure that there was no missing out. Inside it, all of the guys had already boarded the bus. Seth was sitting together with Sophie, chatting with lots of laughs and giggles. As he was talking with her, his eyes went towards the person who just entered the bus. It was none other than his friend Victor. Something weird was about Victor. He did not talk or speak to anyone, and his entire face was completely covered in bruises, as if he just had a fight with someone and was coming back. Seth also felt weird looking at Victor because he normally was a really vocal person, and suddenly he was all silent and was covered with bruises. Even though he kept on looking towards Victor, but he completely ignored him and went to seat, and quietly. After a few moments, another guy entered the bus. This was Brock. His face was also covered with a lot of bruises, and his clothes were also really unkempt, which meant that he just came from another fight. This time, Seth was absolutely confused. as to what the hell just happened to both of them for them to end up in a situation like this. And just like Victor, even Brock also didn't look at Seth to tell them what the hell happened to him. He just silently went ahead to his seat to quietly. Seth thought that these two guys must have started fighting with each other once again. But reality was that it was not them who were fighting with each other, but rather the Chinese students who targeted them got knocked out by both Victor and Brock, but they also took some punches due to which they had some bruises. After everybody had come into the bus, the teacher asked again if somebody was missing and started to do a roll call. But then Sophie stood up and told the teacher that the transfer student June was not yet in the bus. But the transfer student was enjoying a cigarette with the driver at the edge of a cliff. And a moment later, the teacher instantly was standing at his back, unaware of the thing that was about to happen to him. But the driver was shaking in his boots. But for June, rather than a teacher, he felt as if this was an enemy. He instantly went inside his sleeves to take out the baton. But the moment he saw who the person was, he instantly put his weapon inside his sleeve, worrying about what was going to happen next. The teacher once again asked him with a scary voice, what was he doing there? The driver and June realized that they were completely stuck, and they had no way out from the situation. After the nightfall came, everyone went inside their rooms. Brock just calmly looked outside the window, looking at the scenery beneath him. Seth was calmly chilling on his bed, not asleep but just resting. But Victor over here was continuing his training as he was doing push-ups. But then, moment later, as if he was reminded of his fight with June, he told him really slowly that he should enjoy while he can. After all, he was going to take the world championship. Seth just silently looked at Brock's. He then gave a slight smile, saying that it was fine. But on the other side of this trip, the driver and Joan were worried and were sweating due to being called to the teacher's cabin, and they there sitting in the office. Even the teacher was sitting with them, thinking of what should she say to them, because she found one of her students smoking with an unknown guy outside of the school premises. Thinking of not dragging it out any longer, she just stood up and began shouting to him that how could he even think of doing such a vice as smoking, and kept on shouting at him that how bad smoking can be to the lungs of a growing boy, and went on and on. She added that her expectation of him were completely shattered, as she thought that he was going to be somewhat of a decent guy compared to the other transfer student, referring to Brock. Not wanting to fight her anymore, he just went and showed her his ID card, which showed that his year of birth was in Sophie 91. She was absolutely baffled knowing that this guy was just 3 years younger than him, yet he looked so young that he could pass as a high school student. Making a sorry face, June said that he couldn't attend his high school when he was younger because of his family problems, and he joined the school again because he wanted to complete his education at least. The teacher was still shocked, thinking that she didn't think that he would be that old because he looked so young and handsome. Without wasting any time, he just went and grabbed the teacher's hand and brought her hand close to his chest, binging his voice to almost as whisper. He asked her if she was willing to excuse him just this once. Not being able to resist his charms, her face flushed, and she couldn't think straight. And the only thing that she could mutter that it was okay with this. But from outside of the building, the driver was trying to see what was happening, looking like a creep in the process. Even one child pointed out to his asking that what was that man doing, to which his mother shouted him to stay clean of creeps like that. Inside one of the karaoke bars, one of the Chinese boss was drinking a wine, saying that how weak and lean Korean wine was, just like the guys that were under him. And in front of him, all of those battered and beaten Chinese boys were sitting, who were waiting for their boss to holler at them for being so useless. The first guy tried to present his case by saying that the Korean guys were too strong, and that they had underestimated them. But the guy didn't care about the pleas of the underclassmen and threw a wine bottle that went and flew and struck the head of the underclassman and hurt him in the head. Throwing the bottle, he shouted that these underclassmen should be ashamed of even coming back to say that they lost from someone like the Koreans. The undead classman could not do anything except then hold his head where it was bleeding profusely and just stood silently. With nerves protruding from his forehead, he said that the guy should at least remember their uniforms. They could identify them from those uniforms. On the other side of the city, the driver went on to a restaurant called Jeju Restaurant, where he was waiting to meet somewhere in there. Looking at the driver, the person raised up his arms and with a big smile called out to him, saying that how he was, and it was a long time since he has seen him. This person in front of him was the Sunshine Group Corporation's Jeju Biraj chief. He said that he had come on a break because his boss was on a date with someone. Looking at the wide variety of seafood items and rich food, the driver was absolutely ecstatic and gave out a long exclamation saying how amazing it all looked. With a smug face, the branch manager said that he was free to eat all of them. After all, It was their own island's fish, which was absolutely fresh. So it did not even take a single moment for him to chow down the entire food without worrying about anything. He absolutely filled his cheeks with the food like some sort of chipmunk. With a concerned sigh, the regional manager said that it must be really hard trying to take care of such a young boss. But the driver, continuing his food, said that it was not as hard as the regional manager was making it out to be. But the manager was not about to be convinced otherwise, as he brought up a recent situation in which the Derek who was eyeing the corporation head had a beef with the young master and whose man was beaten up by him, absolutely stuffing everything from the table. The driver heaved a big sigh, thanking the regional manager for such a gift, but he was just astounded at how much he was able to eat and could just say it's okay. But then the driver commented that his life must be really good being able to live in a secluded place filled with so much good food. The driver gave out a small sigh, saying that it used to be really good. But right now it is invaded by the Chinese, and every single joy he had in his life was kind of gone now. The driver, with his face still full, could not understand that what he was hinting at. Clearing up the misunderstanding, the regional manager said that the Chinese triad keeps trying to invade the Sunshine Company territory. Hearing about such a worrying proposition, the driver said that he should go and tell Peter, the main bodyguard, about this and do something about it. But the regional manager said that he had not yet gone and told the main bodyguard about it because the triad were not officially it. They were just bothering them behind closed doors using money, and there was no real confrontation up till now. The driver, then easing his worry for a little bit, said that if there was no face-to-face confrontation, then it might be well and good, and this matter could be solved easier. The regional manager agreed that what the driver said was in fact true. But the problem was the triad's boss son was here at the moment handling everything. Although he was here temporarily for a high school trip, but he was told to keep an eye out for any problematic problems. The driver got worried because he said that their boss was here for a high school trip as well. Although it was a coincidence, he could not help worry. The regional manager said that they should just hope that nothing bad happens. The regional manager offered that since they were here, they should at least have a drink with sashimi. Although pretty tempted, but the driver wanted to go back to take care of the boss, the original job he was given. But the manager said that it was pretty okay to let loose for a little while since all of them were excited to see him again after so long. Not being able to let go of his desires and the request from the regional manager, the driver finally gave up, saying that he was okay to go down just one drink. Back at the hotel, the buses from different schools came back to pick up the kids for the next day of the school trip. All of them were chattering around, but among them, one of the Chinese guy recognized the Korean guy's cool uniforms and phoned in to tell their boss about these guys. This day, the teacher said that they were going on a hiking in on a mountain. It was going to be a 5-hour hike till top and then back. In unison, complete unison, the entire student body shouted out boo, booing the idea of hiking to a hilltop. But the teacher maintained silence and told everyone to stay quiet and not shout. She then said that if anybody found it too hard to climb a mountaintop, they can just stay back in the bus and not go. And the rest of the student just kept on being angry. After a dejected state in the entire trip, the students finally got off the bus and stretched a little bit. Just then a taxi rolled up to the same spot from where the Chinese guy walked out who was following them at the hotel. He called the rest of his guys to tell them that he found out the location that these kids were going for. Just quietly, Sophie and Seth continued their date, whereas Victor and Brock, just like before, walked off their own direction, not worrying about anything and just wanting to chill. For some, the trip was proving way too hard, as they were having a lot of hard time trying to climb up the hill. But for some, it was really easy. Victor was having fun in his own way, and Sophie and Seth were having dates and sharing meals and food that they brought with themselves. But this happiness was short, as the Chinese guy pulled up to the place where the rest of the high school guys were there. But the ones they encountered were Brock and Victor. Upon seeing that the Chinese guy said that they had come there to greet them only, they both could not understand that what the hell were these guys talking about. On the other side of the park, Sophie and Seth were continuing enjoying their date. Whereas suddenly a Chinese guy called out to him asking him that he needed to follow them. He said that their boss was waiting for them and had called them out. And as a backup, the guy had brought a lot number of Chinese kids as reinforcements to fight against Seth. Sophie shouted in Chinese that what did they want with them this time? But the Chinese guy shouted that he was not here for her, so she should just shut up. The fight was beginning to get more and more intense when Seth tried to calm her down by putting a hand on her shoulder. He told her that she should get to safety now, as it was not safe, but he should go with them. But the way he told that he should go with them, he had a really creepy smile crept across his face. Sophie could do nothing as she just looked quietly as Seth was being quietly taken as a group along with the Chinese boy group. In the center of the group, he saw that both Brock and Victor were already waiting at the center of the park, and among them, Chinese guy were completely surrounding them. Seth looked towards Victor as if trying to ask answers for what the hell was happening here. But Victor gave a slight shrug, saying that he also had no clue what was happening here. Brock did not say anything and he just stood there quietly. The boss then shouts out to his guys whether these three were everyone who were responsible for hitting his kids the last day. And were they successful to gather everyone up? And finally, the head of the group introduced himself in a menacingly way in front of Seth, Victor, and Brock. Seth turned around to ask the guy that who was he? But being unable to understand each other due to the presence of a language barrier, he called out to one of his guys to translate everything. A weak-looking guy wearing glasses and short height came out from the group trying to readjust his glasses that were falling down from his nose. Just as the boss was saying, the glasses guy instantly translated it, telling the group that the Chinese were disappointed in themselves from losing against Koreans. But he said that there was nothing to worry as he will beat each and every single one of them on 1 versus 1. So who was ready to fight him first? So, listening to these empty threads, Victor began to get angry, getting up from his seat showing that he was the first one willing to go fight. He said that these Chinese guys were pissing them so off. So he was standing face to face to the boss of the Chinese guy, showing that he was the first one planning to go fight with the Chinese. Without giving even a single moment for the Chinese guy to think, Victor began to throw a punch directly directed at his head. But his reflexes were also as ungodly fast as Victor dodging the punch in time, and using the momentum gained from turning his body to perform the dodge, used this as his next attack to punch Victor in his stomach. The punch was so strong that it literally sent him flying back. But thankfully, due to presence of his strength, he was somehow barely able to grind his shoes, stopping him to a halt. So a second later, the effects of the punch were beginning to show, which prevented him from being able to breathe. So unfortunately, not being able to keep his composure, he fell down to his knees. And unable to breathe, he finally lost his consciousness, cursing out to the Chinese guy until the very end. Both Brock and Seth were completely surprised by the sudden change of the playing field. But the Chinese guy had a really big smile on his face, calling out to the next guy who was ready to fight him. So for the next fight, Brock was preparing himself to go as the next guy. But that did not happen, as Seth got completely enraged by the fight and did not let Brock take his turn. Using his gymnastic-level flexibility, he instantly ran and jumped, charging a kick directly aimed at the guy's head. But the guy was able to dodge the kick by lowering himself down, letting the kick flow over his head. Feeling of any kind of counterattack that this guy might attack him with, he instantly jumped back behind, jumping out of his range. But even jumping back was futile, as the guy ran and directed his punch at his face. But fortunately, Seth was barely enough to dodge the punch in the nick of the time. Now, going back to the offensive, he changed his stance and charged another punch directed at him. But before the punch could even connect, the Chinese guy blocked his punch and changed his attack to do an uppercut kick, which once again Seth was able to dodge in the nick of the time. Seth was just surprised at how fast and nimble this guy, given his enormous size. He did not match him at all. And in the meantime, that guy was trying to practice one of his stance, increasing his concentration for the fight. Thinking that this was another of the super powerful charged attack, Seth braced himself by crossing his arms in front of his face and charged attack. It was one of the most powerful kick that the Chinese guy produced by using his entire body weight and attacked directly at Seth's body weight. But this time, Seth's unnatural body strength helped him in a clutch as he was able to tank the entire strength in just one swift motion. The fact that this guy was able to tank his strongest kick and stand up straight shocked the hell out of the Chinese guy. But instead of getting scared or tired, the expression that occupied Seth's face was that of purely static joy. He was really happy that he was able to fight this guy, as it was so fun. On the other side of the park, Sophie was running towards somewhere desperately as she was completely drenched in sweat and she was panting a lot. She was running to the teacher to tell her everything that happened with their boys. Hearing everything, her face was just left open, gobsmacked, scared about what she was going to do now. On the back of the school where June and the driver were talking, laughing with each other. Both of them noticed that the teacher and Sophie were hurriedly running somewhere. He told the driver to be prepared as something had happened and they needed to do something about it. Deflating the cigarette that he was smoking just now, he told the driver to get ready as they needed to go and see if he had a cigarette. Even after so long, both of the guys were still stuck with each other, fighting and stuck in a stalemate. Seth kept on punching him wherever possible. Chinese guy also kept on dodging all of his punches. The Chinese guy also stops at no point to attack Seth in any way, which he also is able to dodge from, but just barely a little more, and it would have connected. Brock was completely surprised, quite stuck looking at this fight, and the rest of the Chinese guys were having such a hard time imagining that their top fighter was having such a hard time with someone from Korea. But Seth did not feel any kind of tiredness at all. He was completely immersed in the fight, really enjoying the process. Finding a little gap in his guard, the Chinese guy punched a roundhouse punch directly at Seth's head. But similarly to all the fights that they had, this fight was also just as before because Seth was able to block this punch with just his bare hand. Taunting him, he said in Korean, "That is this what he truly had? Only this much." And the June and driver were stuck looking at the fight between Seth and the Chinese guy, not being able to know that when the hell they should intervene since they saw that he was able to fight them off easily. A question popped in his mind that how the hell was he so strong when he was just a student? The driver said that even he did not had any idea. The driver added that he was almost about to beat up the bodyguard, which shocked the hell out of June, because for him, the bodyguard was the strongest one. June began to wonder, was his presence even necessary? Because to him, now Seth seems far, far stronger than him, calling him a monster. He punched his hand, bringing him down, opening directly to his head. But he was able to turn his stance around by changing the placement of his feet and instead used the momentum to punch back to the Chinese guy. The punch literally stumped him as the Chinese guy hurt his stomach and started to groan, dragging him by his collar. Seth brought the Chinese guy down to his feet level and bashed his own skull onto the Chinese guy's skull, hitting him in the head. Holding the area which got hit, the Chinese guy screamed in pain as it was hurting him a lot. But just as Seth was about to punch the injured and stunned Chinese guy who was holding out his arms, someone else came in running through the sides. It was another guy who used his roundhouse kick to directly aim at Seth's head, but fortunately he was able to push himself back, barely dodging his kick. Making a distance from himself, he instantly pushed himself back, turning 3 rolls, thus increasing the distance in between himself and the new Chinese guy. Looking at the new guy, he angrily asked, "Who was he?" But this guy did not answer to him as he quietly told the first guy that he was lost and he should move aside. But as a retaliation, the first guy shouted back saying that it was just a small fluke. He can continue his fight and told the second guy to move over. But the second guy intervened saying that he had to step in because if he got any more hurt, he was going to get into trouble. Now, bleeding profusely, he kept on shouting that how shameful it was for him to lose to a Korean, but not giving him a second to think. Seth jumped on the second guy, shouting that who the hell was he to interrupt his fight. The second guy was barely able to dodge the punch with inches to spare from his face. But he did not let that punch go to waste as he continued the momentum and hit the first guy on his face. Now, regaining his smile, he kept on punching him and charged another huge punch. But just as he was about to hit this punch, the second guy locked his elbow to elbow, stopping his punch in midway. He shouted, what the hell was problem with him? Why did he break in like this? Realizing enough was enough. Both the driver and June came out from their hiding spots, giving him the help that he needed. Since this was a serious matter, the driver pulled out his weapon of choice, his baton from his coat pocket, whereas June pulled out his rod from inside his sleeve. But June shouted that he did not need any kind of help. Instead, he was being made to look as if he lost this fight. Seth's eyes were literally burning with rage with so much murderous intent to scare anybody. Seeing such intense, heated, and fighting intent, it sent a shiver down the second guy's spine. Seth then instantly resumed the fight by sending another punch directed at the second guy, but he was barely able to dodge it, saving himself. But there was something else that was really easy to take hold of his hair. So Seth spared no time and just grabbed his hair instead. Holding his hair, he yanked the hell out of him to the side. Bringing his face towards his hand, he loaded another punch directly towards it. But this time, the second guy was unable to defend himself, and the punch landed completely disfiguring his face. Now, back at the office, both June and the driver was saying sorry to someone. The person that they were saying sorry to was the main bodyguard. He was angry that they let June fight someone that was not needed. But Seth intercepted and protected both of them, saying that it was not their fault. The other person attacked him first, and just as a self-defense, he attacked back as well. The main bodyguard said that it did not matter who was correct or who was wrong. But because of their actions, the Jeju Island regional manager is in deep trouble. The regional manager was standing in front of the second Chinese guy who got hit in the head by Seth and the son. Both of them were injured so much by Seth that both of them had to go to hospital. The son had multiple bandages around his entire body, while the second Chinese guy had multiple bandages around his face. The regional manager started to sweat buckets worrying about what he should do right now. But the son raged in anger, speaking in Chinese that he was not going to let them off the hook. This is really he is going to crush them. The regional manager started to sweat even more. The second Chinese guy once more sweared under his breath that he was going to do everything to destroy Sunshine. But at the school, Seth was just sitting in his class not worrying about anything and was just playing around with his pen to kill time. In that time, Brock was busy practicing his boxing skills, hitting the boxing bag again and again repeatedly in the gym. On the other side of the gym, Victor was standing quietly in front of the bags, contemplating about something. With anger in his eyes, he got reminded of the time when the boss's son hit him straight in his stomach, knocking him out in just one punch. This display of such weakness angered him so much that he channeled all of his anger into his fist. After the school time starts, all the children gather up in the class, and the teacher announces that they have another transfer student coming in. All of the students shout out in unison that what the hell was happening. Why did all of the transfer students from the entire country were ending up in their own class? So turning towards the gate, she asked the child to come in and introduce herself to the class. Seeing how pretty she was, the entire class burst out in unison, shouting how beautiful she was, but the girls were angry sitting at the back. Looking at the entire class, she introduced herself to be Akira. Seth was confused about who this transfer student was and why suddenly a Japanese person tried to come into the school now. The head of the dojo who sent Akira called up the guys who were stationed at the school for spying, told the boss that she was successfully able to infiltrate the school without making anyone suspicious. The boss tells the guy what her objective was. Her objective was to quietly take him out so that after he is gone, these guys can then capture over Korea. Even Sophie was fidgeting around Akira. Looking at her, thinking how pretty she was, she looked absolutely beautiful as if a porcelain doll had come to life. But she felt something was odd because Akira was looking at something specific in the class without changing her gaze even a little bit. She saw that Akira's gaze was panning straight through the entire class pinned at Seth, who was sitting at the corner of the classroom. Seeing this, Sophie was pretty shocked, worried about why she was looking at him. But Seth was completely oblivious to anybody looking at him as he was lost in thought playing with his pen. But Sophie began to jump to conclusion thinking that another girl instantly fell in love with Seth, worrying that her number of competitors increased once more. But Akira was super smart. She saw that Sophie was gazing at her with worried eyes, and she understood what everything was. She gave her a sly grin showing that she knew what she was doing and she was completely interested in him. Sophie deceived this as a taunt. Getting super angry, she just stood up in the middle of the class, shocking the hell out of everyone, and began walking towards Seth. He was still oblivious to anybody around him. He did not even notice that she was walking towards him. Wanting to break Akira's eye contact with Seth, she asked him whether he wanted to go to the cafeteria together. As an excuse, she said that she was hungry and she wanted both of them to go together to eat something yummy. Seeing her hurried expression like this, Seth was confused as to what happened and why was she acting like this. But he did not resist or say anything back. He just quietly agreed with her, and Sophie pushed him out of the class, while Akira was looking at both of them. Although she had a hunch about both of them, but this action done by Sophie had solidified her made-up ideas into actual facts. Now, on the back of the school, both Driver and June were once more sitting in the corner taking a smoke. He was worried about June being removed from his post so early, even before he was able to do anything. Even June himself lamented this outcome, but he had no power to change anything, and he was just forced to comply. This all happened due to June shouting the previous night that he was absolutely unhappy that without even telling him a guard was added into the class. So he ordered the main bodyguard to take out that guard and just leave his school life alone. Removing the guard would be a really hard task, so the main bodyguard told June to take some time off and stay together with the driver. The main driver gave a slight chuckle, saying that this was a much better outcome than anything he could have hoped, because the other outcome was being alone, and it was way worse than this. Seeing what a pathetic situation both of them were in, they just started to laugh at each other without any ulterior motives. But looking back, he told the driver that this small experience at the school made him want to go to the school again. Now, back at the school on the back alley of the school grounds, Seth and Sophie were sitting together eating the lunch on one of the benches plopped on the edge. Just then, Akira started to walk out of the class and was headed towards them. Seeing the person she wanted to avoid, to the point that she had to push Seth out of the class to bring him to this cafeteria, made her shriek out a little bit. With a really slight and beautiful smile, Akira told to Seth that she was trying to find him the entire school because she wanted to talk to him. But before talking to him, she first turned towards Sophie, introducing herself to her, saying that she was not used to Korea. So she needed someone to translate things for her that she could not understand. Sophie reluctantly agreed to help her. Turning around, she asked whether Seth was her boyfriend because he looked like one. But Sophie got really flustered and she could not say anything. She just waved her hand in the air. But Seth, understanding what Akira's intentions were, pitched in to help her, saying that he was in fact her boyfriend. Getting up, he started to walk back to the class, saying that he should not disturb in between two girls talking to each other, so he gave both of them some privacy. Sophie reluctantly agreed and thanked him for coming to the cafeteria with her. But before walking back, he looked once again at Akira because something rang inside Seth's mind because he felt like her face was a little bit familiar. But over here, Sophie was completely over the blue moon that Seth had mentioned to an outsider that he was her boyfriend. She was so happy that she was completely flushed red. That night, Seth wanted to go back to the cafe to talk to her mother a little bit. Her mother, a little bit surprised that he suddenly came like this, asked what happened because she did not saw him coming like this. Usually. Seth answered that he needed to talk because he went on a school trip. With a slightly mixed expression, she said that she knew about it, but she would have been happy if his entire trip was done without any kind of problems. Seth looked at her, surprised that she knew everything, and then gave us some slight sigh, saying that he also wished for things to become, but they never go as he wishes. But changing the topic, he told her that there was a transfer student that came to the school that felt a little bit different. His mom's eyes lit up, thinking that he must be talking about a girlfriend, asking him if she was that kind of girl that she thinks. But Seth replied that she was not. He said that the thing he felt about the girl was not something as a love spark. It was something much more serious. His mother's expression also hardened, realizing that his son was not trying to fool around or introduce his girlfriend to her. He said that the way she talks and moves and her actions gave out the same vibes that she gets around her mother, pointing to her mother. His mother's face hardened completely, now devoid of any kind of happiness emotion that she had a few minutes ago. But Seth tried to correct himself, saying that maybe he might have made some sort of a mistake, or maybe it was just his figment of imagination. His mother realized that his son's hunch was not wrong, and there was really something wrong with the school and the girl that he was mentioning about. On the next day, the door to the terrace of the school was broken in a brutal way, in which one of the hinges was broken off in such a way that the lock was ripped apart from it. It was Akira. She was the one who broke the hinges and went to the terrace. From the terrace, she was able to look at every single one who was walking down on the roads. Something like a spying. Her eyes went to Seth, who was walking on the side of the road nonchalantly. She thought to herself that how should she get rid of him? And what should she do to make sure that he did not find out? But Seth's senses kick in, as he looked up to find who was the one who was looking at him. But just like a ghost, there was no one there, leaving Seth to imagine if he imagined something there. But he did not imagine. In fact, he was so fast that she had to use dash in order to hide from his eyesight. Realizing that he was a little bit too dangerous to even left alive even a little bit longer, she instantly pulled out a fanny pack that was attached to her legs. Opening the bag, she slapped it onto the top of the terrace, in which there were multiple parts of syringes. She chose a few parts and joined them one by one to make a really long syringe. But just then, as she was about to kill him, someone came in through the door, saying that she was really true to her bloodline after all. It was Seth's mother. She said to her that if she just went quietly back to her class, she will act like nothing had happened and go back her own way. But Akira's master told her no witnesses, so that's what she was trained to do. Absolutely not leave a single witness. So in order to kill him instead, she shot the dagger towards her first. She did not even flinch when such an enormous dagger was flying towards her. Giving out a slight sigh, she just held a thing mid-air like a pencil. Akira completely lost her composure, seeing that how the hell was she able to do this? Now, slowly walking towards her, Seth's mother said that she was going to even let this attack off as well if she just quietly go back to the class. She said that she was allowing this hospitality because she was of his son's age, and she did not want to kill a child this young, robbing them of their future. But the only thing that was racing through Akisa's mind that this woman was dangerous. She needed to get out of here, or she was about to die. While she was completely stuck midway thinking about what to do with her mind racing, the dagger that she created moments ago came flying straight back at her, directly targeting her eyes. But thanks to her reflexes, she was barely able to move her head aside enough for the dagger to fly by. Although it did not hurt her bad, but it left a big slice on her cheek. The slice was deep enough that blood started to rush out of the wound, flowing through her cheek down to her neck. But she did not have the luxury to just stand and tend to her wounds as there was bigger problems in front of her. Seth's mother jumped up high into the air, lifting her leg to create a devastating blow right on Akira. Although Akira wanted to move, but her body was completely frozen and she was unable to do so, and Seth's mom slammed her head directly onto the ground. But thankfully, she stayed true to her word and did not hurt her as she never was planning to in the first place. Her knee was just light beside her head, a few centimeters away. Then going near her face and grabbing her, she said that Akira was really awful at following instructions, wasn't she? In the class, every student was starting in the middle of which the teacher asked why there were so many students absent in the classroom. But just as she completed saying that one guy entered the classroom, it was June. He knew that he made a mistake by coming late, so he bowed down to the teacher, saying that he was stuck somewhere and asked for forgiveness for being late. But words did not reach her ears as she was completely swooned over by him, and the only word she could utter was, "It's okay, don't worry about it." Seth's eyes went to the guy who entered the class, who was June. June bowed down, making an apologetic face to Seth, asking for forgiveness to him as well. But Seth was not amused as his face twisted a little bit due to annoyance. After some time, Seth called June out to the courtyard to talk to him about why he showed his face in the class once again. Because he was absolutely clear and told his bodyguard that he did not want to see him again. But June said that he did not come back to the school as a spy or a bodyguard to Seth. He came to the school because he wanted to learn as well. He was liking school a lot. Seth could not understand what he was talking about and was confused for a little bit. June tried to hide his embarrassed face, said to Seth that after going to the school for a little bit, he got reminded of the time and he wanted to go to school for real. And although the main bodyguard gave his permission, he thought that it would be nice to ask for Seth's permission as well. So he bowed down in front of him, asking him if it was okay for him to attend school. Seth put a hand in the shoulder of June, bringing his face to his ear. And he said one thing to him, that he was absolutely fine with him joining the school, doing the classes and enjoying it. But he wanted him to stay out of his way. That was his only condition. Seth explained himself, saying that he did not want a bodyguard. He wanted someone as a friend. So of course he would allow him to join the school because he would never refuse a friend. Impressed by his mercy, June once again bowed down to say thank you. But before he could even complete his sentence, he was yanked by the collar, bringing him up to his own eye level. Seth was annoyed that just after saying that he did not want a bodyguard or friend, he instantly became so formal. If he was going to be formal like this, there was no need for him to study here. June apologized, saying that it was just a force of habit. He did not mean to say it like that, and he will be careful from now on. Leaving his collar, he said, he just has to relax and just attend the classes and not think much. Just act like the students and not a thug. Saying this, Seth just quietly walked away without saying anything anymore, leaving June speechless. After Seth was out of his view, June gave out a slight smile, happy that even his boss was a kind person. But over here on the other side, Akira was stuck somewhere really problematic. She looked back to see if the problem that caused her to be here was even real, or what she imagined. But it was absolutely real. It was Seth's mother who brought her to this point, and she told her to not run anywhere, and let her get to the leader who told her to do this. So the next day came just as before, and everybody went back to the classes, where the teacher continued teaching her studies after the school trip. And just as always, Seth was sleeping in the corner of the class without bothering anyone. Well, at least he was trying to, as he was unable to sleep, even though previously he used to fall asleep at a moment's notice in the class. Seth was unable to fall asleep because he felt that the class was out of place because his friends, especially Victor, was absent from the class that day. Trying to mellow it down, Seth dug his head into his arms, trying to forget about everything else in the class and just sleep, but he was totally unable to do it. So the time kept on passing by. One teacher came. Then the next teacher came, the really old one who teaches history. And then finally, after all the periods, the day came to an end and all of the classes got over. Seth was sitting motionlessly in class, completely bored out of his mind, as he was not even able to sleep properly. Really annoyed, he got out of his seat and started to walk out of the class, going back home without uttering a single word to anybody. Sophie could not understand this behavior of his and was worried that something might be wrong with Seth. Back in his car, the driver welcomed back Seth and told him good luck for the entire day, whereas Seth silently said yes without answering anything. Realizing his mood was off, the driver asked him whether he wanted to go somewhere else today. Thinking about it for a little while, he said that he wanted to go to his mom's cafe. But when he reached the cafe, He saw that the shutter was closed and nobody was there. And on the front of the shutter there was a paper on which it was printed that the shop was going to be closed due to personal reasons of the cafe owner. Worried about his mother, he called to see if she was okay or not. But unfortunately, the call did not connect and the dialer went to the voicemail. His worry started to increase little by little as he realized that something was not right. Because the last day his mom was also super cautious once he mentioned the name of the girl. But on the other side, Mom was accompanying Akira, who was showing her the way to that dojo from where she got the order to kill Seth. Heading towards the dojo, she ordered Akira to stand still in that position and to not even think about running away at all. Scared, Akira stood absolutely saying that she will not even think about it. The next moment, Seth's mom burst open the gates to talk with whoever was inside. Inside, there were two gang members who saw Seth's mom and asked who was she and why did she come here. But Seth's mom said with the angry tone that she wanted to get this over with just talks, but it seems as if those two guys were not going to let her do so. Seeing that she was going to attack them, both of the guys instantly went into the coat pocket to pull out their weapons, but it did not matter much because she was instantly able to incapacitate both of them within moments. But the bigger guy was not completely knocked out. He retained some of his consciousness and he went on to do the last thing before passing out. He pulled out a remote control in which there was a big red button indicating somewhat of an alarm and pressed it. Leaving both of them behind, Seth's mom then walked into the inner courtyard in which it was Japanese tatami mat doors, and slowly slid them out open. She knew that these doors were fragile, so she was not harsh with them. Just as she went inside, in front of her, she saw a muscular guy filled with tattoos looking at her angrily reaching for his weapon. But before going after her, he asked her that who was she and why did she come here to cause trouble for them? But she was silent. She did not answer a single thing and just looked at him. Realizing that he was not going to get anything out of her, he just snapped his fingers, ordering some guys around him. Holding weapons like katanas and long batons, a lot of people came in through the tatami mat doors at the order of this guy. They did not just had weapons like batons or swords, they also had modern weapons like guns and pistols. He looked at her saying that, what can a single woman do when faced with so many people armed to the brim? Looking at the people and scanning all of them weapons, she gave out a big sigh, then releasing a lot of bloodlust. She warned the guys that if anybody came towards her holding a weapon, they should be prepared to die as well. Her bloodlust was so insane that the main guy who called all of these started to shake in fear. She then said that it was rude of her to not introduce herself to who she was. She then said that she was the mother of the person that they were after. The explanation was so vague that he could not even understand who she was referring to, as they had multiple people that they were aiming at all at once. Then pulling out her tie loose, she prepared herself saying that she needed to get this over with so she can go back to her cafe. The next place that Seth planned to visit was the Rotary Boxing Gym, the place where Victor and Brock frequented and practiced their boxing. Even now, right at this moment, both Victor and Brock were practicing their boxes and completely drenched in sweat. They continued on hitting each other, with each of them placed on the same level of skill and each of them getting the same level of hits. Seth came into the gym and asked the both of the guys that why were they not coming to the school. With a sly smile, he told both of them that he came to the gym because he was missing them at school. And seeing that they were playing boxing, he said that it looked really fun and actually if he could join in. But Brock just silently gave out a glare and did not say anything. A moment later, he took off his gloves and got off the stage, leaving Seth to fight with Victor. Surprised that he was leaving, he asked that did he not want to fight him. Brock said that he did not need to rush his victory now. He needs to practice. And he promised that no matter what happens, he will be the one to beat Seth. Seth gave out a creepy smile, realizing that he had a lot of fun times in front of him. After that, 33 of the gloves in front of Seth's legs. Then Victor shouted out from the corners that why was he standing and ordered him to wear the gloves and get into the ring fast. With an angry face, Victor admonished Seth, saying that he looked down on boxing just because he had an innate talent for fighting, and he was going to prove him wrong. Before the match, Victor gave out the rules that there will be 3 minutes per round for 4 rounds, and at the end, the highest number of rounds will win. Giving a big grin, Seth picked up the gloves and put them on and smacked the punches together to make a loud bang sound. With a big smile, he told Victor to bring it on and do his absolute best. During the match, Seth was easily dodging each and every single punch thrown towards him by Victor, while Victor over here was absolutely losing his stamina and his patience trying to land a single hit on Seth. He changed his tactic to try to land a right-hand hook, but Seth was able to evade the hook just in time, and the hook just went right past his face, tearing through open air. And as a counter, Seth used his own right-hand hook, which Victor was able to block using his left elbow. But the force of the punch was so hard that he knew that he could not keep his balance. So he started to jump backwards to keep his stance straight. He shouted out just what the hell was Seth made out of. He began to think that even though he was the one who practiced so much, why the hell? Where Seth and those Chinese guys and others are so strong inherently. What's the difference between him and them? He did not want to believe that it was all talent crap. In fact, it made him so angry that he gritted his teeth and stood once more. Pulling his next punch into a charged attack, he started to run, building momentum, shouting that Seth should not disrespect something as refined as boxing with something as crude as fighting. Now, back at the Japanese house where Akira and Seth's mother had gone to fight the boss. Some of the guys literally flew through the tatami mat doors that she was trying so hard to not break. Seeing her fighting spirit and caliber, all of her eyes were completely frozen in the spot. They were all sweating bullets and afraid of making any movement. By now, she had already defeated half of the guys that came to attack her, with the other half standing far away from her, really cautious. But one of the guys, having faith that he could maintain his distance, started to run towards her, swinging his long sword right at her. But it did not take even a second for him to get intercepted as she threw her kick directed right at his face, instantly knocking him out. Then after that, another big guy started to run towards, holding a melee weapon, shouting for her to die. His melee weapon was this sword, short sword. He was holding it out towards her and running to kill her. And in the next moment, Seth's mom used another human as a shield to protect herself from the stab. The bald guy was surprised to see that instead of hurting Seth's mom, he instead stabbed his old friend, bleeding him to death. He was angry that she tricked him like this. He shouted and clenched his fist into a punch and started to run towards her. But she brought both the fingers towards her face and stabbed him in the eye, making him completely blind. And using his eye sockets as a grabbing point leverage, she pulled him down and banged his entire body on the floor. Then, after letting these two guys play and rest, she started to walk towards the rest of the Japanese guy, who were now afraid, and scurried into the corners of the rooms. But just as she was walking, somebody shouted out to her while having a gun pointed at her. This guy shouted out to her to not move, as if she would make any movement he was going to shoot her in the head. Saying that she was locked into a stalemate, another guy from the front group who was carried in the corner found a stick and began screaming at him, swinging the big weapon towards her. But she was able to successfully dodge it by pulling her head down, letting the rod go over her head. And using that same momentum, she created a leg swipe, which threw the guy completely off of his leg, making him fly into the air. Just near her, another body was stuck on the floor with a big knife sticking right out of it. She kicked the knife out of the body and sent it flinging towards the guy who was holding the gun on her. The knife went flying past everyone and directly hit the guy on his left shoulder, completely disarming him. And for the next guy, she hit the person directly into his temple, this time completely killing him. Realizing that it was still not over and that person had a bit of life left, she picked up the sword held by another guy. She sliced the sword directly at the guy's shoulders, cutting him into two. With the sword through him, he was now profusely bleeding, sputtering blood everywhere. Even Seth's mom was not saved, and she was completely drenched in blood spurted by him. And now, completely drenched in blood, the guy fell down to the floor, dying out. The rest of the gang was completely terrified and stuck in their places, nobody stepping out a single step, afraid for their lives. Holding the sword to her face, she said that if anybody tries to stop her or attempts to intercept her, she is going to take their life. Then the club president's father then puts out a small cup of tea for another person, saying that they should share a drink. But the guy said that he was an ambassador and he had no reason to drink with a prosecutor. But Jason's father kept on laughing, saying that they were friends from junior high, so he just wanted to have some friendship time. But the other guy knew that he was just spouting bullshit and asked him what was the point, why did he call him? The club president's father invited Sophie's father for a drink, saying that they should have a little bit fun time together. But Sophie's father said that there was no reason for an ambassador to have a drink with a prosecutor. But giving out a small chuckle, club president's father said that there was no need to be so formal. After all, they have been friends since junior high and college. They should have no reason to just drink around. But Sophie's father said that he was spouting out bullshit. He called him because he needed something and asked him what it was. The president's father said that it should be already said to him by Sophie, and he did not need to explain it once more. But just in case he did not know, the president's father said that the situation was about his school. He made his brother in charge of the school, but it got taken by those sunshine thieves. But Sophie's father intervened, saying that he checked the documents. It was a completely legal transfer. There was no illegal activity involved in it. But he was angry that he was indirectly telling him to just let the thieves take his hard blood, sweat, money results, and he should just stay quiet about it. He is not going to let them go this easily. He is going to make them understand that it was who they messed up with. Keeping down his tea with a great disappointment, Sophie's father said that he had already looked into the company and there was nothing illegal about it. Even if he launched another investigation, he's not going to find anything. Showing a creepy smile, President's father said that if legality isn't the way to go for it, then he is going to do things the gangster way. Make them show who's on the top by brute strength. Sophie's father advised that he also tried it once, but there is nobody ready to go against someone as big as Sunshine. But the president's father said that it was true within Korea, which is why he was planning on sending his men to Japan to find someone who could stand up to Sunshine. And right now, he already had someone in mind, the biggest gang in Japan. As a legal head, Sophie's father got really angry when he realized that the president's father was planning to cause a war in Korea. But keeping the same creepy smile, President's father tried to assure him that he was not going to cause any big issue. He was just going to get rid of some people in his way and nothing more. Without answering anything, Sophie's father quietly left the table. With raging anger in his eyes, he said that he was a devout follower of law. And as his friend, the only thing he could do right now is to pretend that he did not hear any of this. President's father, throwing his teacup to the ground, groaned to himself that he was the one who made him a state attorney, and now he was showing his back to him. Now, the scene cuts back to the Japanese-style house to their gang members. Inside the house, it is an absolute massacre with people and parts mixed up as rice bags thrown all about the room. Not a single piece of tile left untouched by blood. In the middle of all of this, Seth is more standing quietly, taking in deep breaths as she was panting a little bit after the fight. After regaining her breath, she quietly started walking towards the young master who was leaning down on one of the walls. But on the wall there was a painting through which the main master was looking through. Absolutely terrified. Scared that what the heck happened just now and who was she? But his sense of security behind the closed room seemed fleeting as he saw something was rapidly approaching towards him. Seth's mother was running towards the painting, holding her sword right at its middle. Not even a moment later, her sword was halfway into the photo frame, stabbing it with all of her force that she could muster up. But thankfully, the leader was somehow saved as the sword just went by a few millimeters off of his face, sparing him. He realized that if he hadn't moved his head in time, then the sword would be inside his head right now. With a threatening voice, Seth's mom said that if they or any of their connected members, anyone try to touch his son again, then she won't hesitate to kill him. On another unassuming day, Seth was sitting quietly in his glass looking outside the window, unlike other times when he would be just sleeping. Even Sophie, looking at him, was worried, thinking what had happened to him for him to act differently like this. As both of them were covered in their own thoughts, suddenly the bell for the school day end went off, and Seth was trying to get off to go somewhere. Sophie came and approached him. With a slight smile, she said that she did not have to go to cram school today because of holiday, so instead, she wanted to go with him to eat something. But Seth, keeping the same smile but a little bit pained, told to Sophie that he could not accompany her this time, as he had to go somewhere today. Feeling guilty, he told her that she did not need to worry about it, and he will buy her something good next time. Slowly and quietly, he walked to his parked car at the side of the door, lost in thought. The driver with the same meek little boys invited him and asked how his day at the school went. Not answering anything else, he just said that he wanted to go to his mom's cafe once before going home. But just as he got up for the cafe, worried about his mom yet still. But he got shocked seeing what was in front of him. It was his mom. She was already well and good and back, running her cafe. Seth ran inside, calling out to her, wanting to ask her a lot of things. But first, he was just happy to see her. But the mom acted completely nonchalant, as if nothing had happened with her, asking Seth if he had fun in school. Although he had a lot of questions to ask, but the only thing he could muster up to ask was where was she? But keeping the same nonchalant way, she said that she has just gone to do some errands last day. Asking if he was worried, Seth shouted that he was indeed. After all, she did not even pick up her phone. But just then he noticed that there was someone else in the cafe as well. The moment he asked his mom about her, she flinched at her place, giving out a small shriek. It was Akira. Seth's mom said that she is going to employ Akira to be working part-time for a little while, and she thought that he would be friends with her because she was his classmate. Seth was completely confused as to what the heck did he just see in front of his face, but he did not question any further and he just stayed quiet. His mom then turned his face towards her, asking her if she was going to go back to the school tomorrow. Wasn't she? With sweats rolling down her face, Akira answered that she was going to go back to school. On the next day, in front of this Santu company building, a mob boss was sitting, asking that why was he summoned here. He was the three-headed ghost gang's boss. It was the principal of the school who had summoned him over there. He pulled out a small briefcase without saying anything, and opening the suitcase, there were millions of dollars worth of one inside the suitcase intended as payment for something. The boss just stared quietly at the money, thinking what to say now, then quietly addressed, saying that it won't be easy if his target is Sunshine, because they are working on something at the moment. This left the principal's mouth completely open, as he did not expect this to come out of his face. Scratching his scar, the boss said that even though he was awarded this much amount of money, they have rules that they have to go by, since they and Sunshine are on the same side. But if this was really important to them, then he can pull some strings, but it was not important. What was important? That what could the both brothers do for them? The younger brother, the principal, said that his older brother was preparing places for them to expand their business into Korea, allowing them to increase their empire. Leaning back to his seat, the boss said that this offer was not that amazing, because opening up a few businesses in Korea was something that they could do with their own power. Upon being asked that what exactly they wanted, the boss said that they wanted something that they could make a lot of profit on. Giving a creepy smile, he said that he wanted the two brothers to help them bring goods into Korea through illegal routes. If they could do that, then the Japanese will do the rest. The principal's eyes were left open as he realized that this proposition was way more than he could ever offer. Seeing that the principal was trying to resist, the boss said that this price was enough, since they were getting rid of someone as big as Sunshine Group. And in the end, it was them who benefited the most. Sweat rolling down his face, he stayed quiet, as he had no other way to refute him. The boss giving a small smile, understanding that he was successfully able to trap the brothers into the trap. He told him that he will give him some time to decide, and advised him that instead of just roaming around trying to think, he should try to go to the hot springs while he was over there to cool down his mind. Meanwhile, in Jeju Island, the company manager was repeatedly getting kicked and beaten away. The manager was not even able to resist, but the barrage of attacks did not stop as it rained down on his face, his throat, and the rest of his body. Not being able to resist, he was finally laid back onto one of the walls, banging his back on a tree. The group that brought him to this state was the branch chief of the Chinese black group, Mando, especially the leader, who was quietly walking towards the already injured manager. But the manager quietly stood up, spat out the blood in his mouth, wiping his face, said that at this point it was boring that how they could only do this one single thing to him day after day. The leader quietly said that if he wants to get out of this perpetual loop, then he should just quietly talk what they want to know. He clarified that he was not in fact here because of gang wars or hierarchy wars. He just wanted to know who was the guy who beat up his brother. We cut back to the Sunshine Corporation's building, which had a helicopter sitting on the helipad. And inside the topmost floor, the main bodyguard was quietly looking out through the window into the night city of Korea. Just then the phone sitting on his office table started to ring. After he picked it up, he did not hear a clear transmission. Rather, he started to hear a lot of haze. Through the haze, he could only make out a few words, words who said that, "Sir, it was me." Just through the voice alone, even in the middle of the haze, the main bodyguard was able to figure out that it was Joe, the Jeju Island's regional manager. Now, completely bloodied up in his location, he called out to the main bodyguard, asking him for help and saying that he was in a predicament, bringing the phone from the manager to his own face. The leader told the main bodyguard that if he wanted his group member back, they needed to bring the guy who beat his brother up. But without answering yes or no, the main bodyguard asked him instead that who he was. The leader did not hide his identity and instead said it openly that he was the Mando's branch leader, Joan Lee from the black group, gripping his phone tightly. The main bodyguard said that if he touched his men, then he is not going to leave Korea alive. He will make sure of it himself. But back at school, Seth was busy looking outside of the window. Outside of the window, there was a small bird that was flapping around its wing, trying to find a perfect place to perch on. But just as he was distracted by the class, he noticed that Akira came into the class a little bit late today. Although he was looking at her with apathetic eyes, no hate, no emotion, nothing. But to her, his eyes were one of the scariest things she had ever seen in her life. She was so scared of him, in fact, that the moment he got up to stand, Akira shrieked and dropped her back to the ground. He quietly walked past a visibly shaken-up Akira, telling her that he needed to talk with her and wanted some answers. Quietly agreeing to his wishes, he and Akira, both of them, walked to the rooftop, And just as they were walking, Sophie came in from the side, noticing both of them. With a look of concern and slight bit of jealousy, she thought that what both of them might have to do together to go to a secluded location like this. Not being able to contain her curiosity, she quietly creeped onto the broken door, trying to see what conversation both of them were trying to have. Although she knew she was at fault, but she could not help herself as she peeked through the door. Seth was straight and to the point. He asked her to explain about everything that was happening around him, trying to feign ignorance. Akira set aside her gaze, trying to dodge the question, acting like she did not know what he was asking about. He tried to make it easier by breaking down his questions. He first asked her that what happened for her to end up in his mom's cafe. She quietly answered that things just happened and nothing more. But Seth lashed out with anger, saying that Akira might think that she is stupid, but he was not. He wanted to know that what was Hari and relationship with his mom, but Akira kept on fidgeting around, trying to avoid the topic as much as she could, not trying to answer his questions. Enough was enough. He started to get angry when he realized that everybody around him was not paying him any attention at all and treated him like some sort of kid. Showing off a mean and angry face, he said that he was going to make her regret not telling him what was going on. Seeing this, Akira started to shake in her place, saying that he was just like his mom, and started to cry, ugly, saying that why were he and his mom were bothering her so much? What had she done to them? Seeing this, Seth went into a shock. Not just Seth. Even Sophie was confused as to what happened and why was she suddenly crying. Seth was now stuck in a complete bind, worrying that if he did something to make her cry. Seeing that Seth was stuck in a weird position, Sophie went in quietly, trying not to startle them in order to help them. But Seth was startled anyways. Now his confusion and fear started to getting worse as he could not understand how was he supposed to explain what just happened in front of his eyes to Sophie. Now, in other side of the city, the Scarface mob boss had come to a certain location. It was the Japanese-style stronghold which Seth's mom raided a little while ago. Entering the house, he felt weird seeing that not a single guard was guarding the house, when normally he remembered that any way he looked, he could see 2 guards guarding the place. He angrily shouted out into the house, asking that why was no one responding no matter how many times he called what happened to everyone. But the scene he saw in front of his eyes shocked the hell out of him. The Japanese leader just quietly slanted his back to a wall, looking up at the ceiling, lost in thought. He did not even realize that the mob was here, called out to him. Worried about him, the mob was slowly walked up to him to ask what had happened. With a completely dead face, he asked the mob boss what was he doing here. He got straight to the point and said that he came because he had a favor to ask from the gang. Upon being asked what favor it was, the mob boss replied that the favor was for the country Korea and that they needed to get rid of the company Sunshine. But the second he heard the words Korea and Sunshine, sweat started to flow out of him as he got reminded of his PTSD. He crunched himself into a fetal position, scared, mumbling to himself that he was not going to mess up with those guys ever again. He was free to do whatever he wanted, but he did not want anything to do with them. The mob boss just quietly looked at the Japanese leader, wondering what the hell they did to those Koreans to make him like this. We jumped back to the school where a few minutes ago the school ended and all of the students were going back home. And just like everyone, Seth was going back home as well. But just a group of guys rapidly approached him. And the way they approached him, they were up to no good. These were the captains of all the sports group in the school, ganging up together to tell something to him. Not starting to fight, Seth quietly asked them that, what was the meaning of this, and what did they want with him? But the big guy shouted out to him that how arrogant he could be and told him to just stay quiet and follow them, happy that he was finally going to get some action. Seth gave out an angry smile, indirectly telling them that he was not going to cooperate so nicely. And from the first floor of the building, the council president was looking down on Seth in the group. He was absolutely losing his mind, gritting his teeth. He promised to himself that he was not going to let all of this end here like this.